21st, 2017, Single Family Design Board. Before I go to public comment, why don't we go ahead and do a roll call, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chair Sweeney?
Here.
Vice Chair Miller?
Here.
Board Member James? Here. Board Member Motisha? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Robert will be absent.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to public comment. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the board on any item not on today's agenda? Okay, before I close public comment, staff did send to us this afternoon some comment on a project located at 1631 Shoreline Drive. Just a little background. The project had to appear before the Planning Commission. Mr. Thompson is here in the audience from the Planning Commission. If you have any specific questions, he can probably answer them if you wish. But I've been advised that the work the Planning Commission had to do is being processed. Apparently several folks didn't realize this project was happening, showed up at the Planning Commission and was demanding changes to the design of the project. And planning commissioners basically indicated that that was the job of this board and that this project will be coming back to us at some point. One of the things you'll notice in the items that were provided by the public is they took photographs of story poles which were part of the Planning Commission approval. Those story poles apparently have now been removed. So when this project comes to us, as we review it, depending on how we see things, we may or may not request that the story poles be re-erected for our purposes. But unfortunately, they've been taken down. So if that becomes an issue when we review it, we'll have to address it at that point. Short of that, Katie, you can basically respond to these folks if they have any questions that we'll be making comment and studying their letter and their information, but we'll do that at the appropriate time when the client, or when the applicant comes back to us for this project.
Yes, if I could just comment, Mr. Chair, I think there was concern among the citizens that some, although we sent out the mailed notice, some claim that they did not receive the mailed notice. So we're going to be re-noticing the item for the September 5th agenda so that we can make sure everyone gets the agenda, or the notice rather.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Okay. Then let's go to approval of the minutes. If there's no other public comment, the chair will close public comment, and then we'll go to approval of the minutes for the August 7th meeting. Do I have a motion for approval?
I make that motion.
Do I have a second? Okay, let's go through each item. Item number 1, any changes, corrections, questions on number 1, 940 Alston Road? Number 2, 23 Wade Court.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
So this item last week when we reviewed, or excuse me, 2 weeks ago, we were supposed to make the CEQA 15183 determination for this project. So that's why it's rescheduled for today's meeting, is just for that, to make that determination for environmental review.
For the CEQA, okay.
Yes.
And when we get to that, I'm sure you'll kind of guide us a little bit. Okay, thank you. Item number 3, 315 La Marina Drive. Item number 4, 1117 Harbor Hills Drive. Hearing no further comments, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Let's go to the consent calendar for August 14th. Katie.
The minutes for the August 14th consent agenda are as follows. Item A, 511 Ambrosian Way was continued 1 week with the comments that mow-free turf is unacceptable and that the applicant is to provide additional plantings to soften the walls of the structure and provide screening. Item B, 310 Argonne Circle received approval of review after final is submitted. Item C, 1903 El Camino de la Luz received final approval with the comment that the proposed cable railing is approved in stainless steel. Item D, 1323 East De La Guerra Road, was continued 1 week with the comment that the applicant is to return with the required letter from an engineer stating that the house cannot structurally support a traditional two-piece clay barrel tile and that an S-tile alternative material is appropriate. Item E, 124 Palisades Drive, received project design approval with the comments that the board made the NPO findings, that the deck is acceptable since it is set back more than 15 feet from the interior property line and is located away from the southerly and easterly adjacent properties, that the scale of the second floor at 9 feet is appropriate, the style of architecture is compatible with the existing architecture of the residence, the proposed wood deck railing is compatible with the existing architecture, and the size, bulk, and scale are consistent with the homes along Palisades Drive. Item F, 1540 Franceschi Road, was continued indefinitely to the staff hearing officer with comments that the proposed deck and stair encroachment is aesthetically appropriate and supportable due to the constrained site. The encroachment is not significantly visible from Franceschi Road, Alameda Padre Serra, and the city due to the screening vegetation. The encroachment does not pose consistency issues with the single-family design board guidelines, and the applicant is to return with the proposed deck light fixture represented on the elevation. Item G, 130 Vista de la Cumbra, received project design approval and final approval with the comments that the board made the NPO findings and that the proposed fence is consistent with the streetscape. Since this area of San Roque has unusually shaped lots and there are no sidewalks or parkways, the fence is aesthetically appropriate and acceptable and allows for privacy that would otherwise be unavailable to this lot. The design and materials are acceptable. The fence is to be painted the same trim or body color of the existing residence and should be consistent with the other existing fencing on site. The applicant is to repair the fence as needed, particularly at the entry gate. The northerly section of the fence should be included in the minor zoning exception to exceed the maximum allowable height.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Just one comment on item G. That's probably a good example of what one has to do when we're dealing, when we have a positive comment and we want to approve something. You know, a lot of times when we're not approving or we're whatever, we go through lengthy list. This is one where we approved it, but we also chose to go through the lengthy list because at some point some neighbor may object, particularly because of where this house was in the neighborhood. So that's probably a good example. Okay, any other comments, questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Let's go to this morning, August 21st, consent calendar. Katie.
The minutes for the August 21st SFDB consent agenda are as follows. Item A, 350 Conejo Road, received final approval as submitted. Item B, 1530 Shoreline Drive, received final approval with the condition that the applicant resubmit the site plan to design review staff showing that the AC unit is out of the required setbacks and noting that one door has been eliminated. Item C, 1860 Eucalyptus Hill Road, was continued 1 week. Item D, 1323 East De La Guerra Road, received project design approval and final approval as submitted with the conditions. The board made the NPO findings and the applicant must submit the engineer's note and follow the S-tile installation requirements found in the single-family design board guidelines on page 34C. Item E, 511 Brosian Way, was continued indefinitely with comments. 1, the board is amenable to the placement of the Little Ollie on sheet L1.0. The board accepts the Olympia as a replacement planting. The applicant is to show all irrigation and have creeks review the proposed drainage swale to provide clear identification of all buckthorn along the west property line. Of all planted buckthorn along the west property line. The current landscape proposal is not acceptable. Provide at a minimum 5 24-inch box trees along the west property line. Item F, 3360 Braemar Drive, received final approval with the comment that the proposal is consistent with the neighborhood. Item G, 1404 West Valerio Street, was continued 1 week with comments to provide the engineer note stating that the house cannot support a traditional two-piece clay tile and that S-tile is an appropriate alternative. And the board supports the color in El Camino blend. Item H, 710 Las Canoas Place was continued indefinitely with comments that the applicant is to have transportation staff review the proposal to provide alternative plant material for the proposed lawn, and the applicant is to note the color of plaster on the plans. Item I, 521 Chiquita Road, received final approval with the condition that the applicant is to submit the paint color to design review staff. That's it.
Yes. Let's take a motion first and a second. Do we have a motion for approval?
I have a question.
Okay.
I make that motion.
Do I have a second? Okay. Now, discussion.
3360 Braemar Drive. Fence was approved?
Yes. Yeah, just so you all know, because you saw probably correspondence to the effect from folks in the neighborhood, it became very clear to us that the folks in the neighborhood didn't really understand what the applicant was requesting. I think they may have thought that the applicant was requesting a fence around the whole property and along the street and so forth and so on. That isn't what was going on. There's an existing fence up on Braemar, got the right street, Braemar Lane, that's already there, but it requires fixing up, and they wanted to put another gate, a person gate in it, et cetera. And it's very unobtrusive. It's already there, and it's right across the street from a big home that has a big stone wall around the whole property. So that's kind of the difference, I think. You know. And they had a whole fence that would have maybe been a different issue. Katie, just one maybe addition or correction on Ambrosian Way. Item number 3, the applicant is to show all irrigation and have creeks review the proposed west drainage swales, just so we're clear. Word west.
And I also have a comment about the little ollie. Let's add olea. Little ollie.
Which one? Which item is that?
Item number 1.
Oh, okay.
Is that it?
No, item E.
E1, right?
So instead of a little ollie.
No, it's olea, little ollie. Like, the genus is olea.
Okay.
Oleae. And it's a variety, little ollie.
Okay. Any other corrections or comments? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay. Announcements. Katie.
Yes, Mr. Chair. I'm not sure if I mentioned this at a previous meeting, but as you're all aware, the item 288 Cannon Drive was appealed. However, the appellant has rescinded the appeal, so it's no longer appealed. And then on our next meeting on September 5th, Fred will not be here. Do I have someone that's willing to cover consent?
I won't be here either.
You won't be here either. September 5th, it's a special Tuesday meeting.
Okay. We won't have a quorum then.
Okay,
So, because if we're both gone,
right.
so there's no quorum.
For the meeting, but what about, you're talking about consent, right?
Maybe, would you be able to cover consent?
Consent.
We may have to cancel the full board meeting.
Right.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Doesn't happen too often, but once in a while it happens. Okay. All right. Okay, any other announcements? I would just like to share with you that I added some comments to staff on the processing of the new ordinance that they're proposing for accessory dwelling units. And I didn't copy you all. And because basically I did it as a private citizen and explicitly said I didn't represent anybody's opinion on this board and any other organization I belong to, so just so you know. But if you'd like to see it, give me an email and I'll forward it to you. Okay? All right, anything else? Okay, then let's go to item number 1, 23 Wade Court. This was here for project design approval, was granted on August 7th, 2017, without the necessary environmental finding.
There was a quote that I didn't have said that needed to be said.
What's that?
Is this for the Wade Court?
Yeah, well, let me finish reading this, and you can read that. Okay, so the project requires an environmental finding for CEQA guidelines, section 15183 exemption. Projects consistent with the general plan. If you could introduce yourself, please.
I'm Jeff Shelton, architect.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Miller, you're on.
All right, the single-family design board finds that the project qualifies for an exemption from further environmental review under CEQA guidelines. I'll say that again. The single-family design board finds that the project qualifies for an exemption from further environmental review under CEQA guidelines, section 15183, based on the city staff analysis and CEQA certificate of determination on file for this project.
So just to have the record right, we need to have you give the project design approval again with the 15183 finding. So you can make the same motion you did last time, just include, I handed, put a memo down there. It's the same thing you just read, but we'll need to reread in.
Where's the memo? Oh, this one. Is it this one?
Oops, I put a bunch of stuff on the floor. This one, yeah, there you go, okay.
So you can reread that in and then, or just reread your project design approval.
And this one?
So just reread this motion and include that language.
Okay.
Okay, now, before you do that.
Yeah.
That's the process. Since Mr. Shelton is sitting, is there anything you need to add before we do a motion?
No.
Okay, then the chair would entertain a motion to address the CEQA.
Okay, the board appreciates the lowered ceiling.
Sorry, real quick, is there any public comment?
Oh, yeah, forgot
Sorry.
that piece.
Okay.
Okay, chair will close public comment. Now back to the board.
Okay. The board appreciates the lowered ceiling height. Number 2, the landscape plan is acceptable as proposed. Number 3, the board made the finding that the neighborhood preservation ordinance criteria has been met as is stated in subsection 22.69.050 of the City of Santa Barbara Municipal Code, with positive comments regarding the project's consistency and appearance, neighborhood compatibility, quality of architecture, and materials, landscaping, protection of public health, safety and welfare, compliance with good neighborhood guidelines, and preservation of public views. Action taken by Motisha, seconded by James. Motion
No,
was carried.
You don't need to read that part, because you're making a new motion, so you just leave,
Okay.
she can leave off the who voted, because we're doing it again. Okay, and then you got to read that.
Oh, and then we make a
Can you add that?
Okay. The single-family design board finds the project qualifies for the exemption from further environmental review under CEQA guidelines section 15183, based on the city staff analysis and CEQA certificate of determination on file for this project.
Okay, is there a second to that motion?
Yes.
Okay, there's a first and second in the motion. Are there any questions or comments to the motion on the floor? Okay. Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstention, so carried. Okay, you have your approval.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Can
it.
you announce the 10-day appeal period?
And it is a 10-day appeal period since it was a final approval. Okay, we're at 3:50. Okay, we're in good shape.
Didn't say anything.
You didn't need to say anything. Okay, we're at 820 Centinela Lane. This project is here for project design approval. The project must comply with the staff hearing officer resolution 024-17. Project was last reviewed on July 24th, 2017.
Oh.
Get muscles down there. Dave, are you presenting from that set?
Yeah.
Do you want another one down there for a moment?
No, we can.
We'll just do the two then.
I think we're ready
Okay,
here.
if you could introduce yourselves, please.
Sure, I'm Dave Mendro, architect.
Microphone's on.
Dave Young, Young Construction Builder.
Okay,
Stacy Fawcett, landscape architect.
welcome.
Trish Allen, Suzanne Elledge, Planning and Permitting.
Okay, thank you. Welcome. Okay, Mr. Miller, could you read our July 24th comments, please?
Number 1, the board appreciated the proposed style of architecture. Number 2, restudy to reduce the amount of export in the field to achieve a better balance in the amount of cut and fill. Number 3, restudy to reduce amount of lantern effect at the discretion of the designer. Number 4, the board agreed that the organic design of the project to the topography of the site gives the appearance of a one-story structure. Number 5, restudy the proposed square footage to reduce the floor-to-lot area ratio, FAR. Number 6, the board appreciated the proposed landscape plan. Action by Miller, seconded by James. Motion was carried.
Mr. Chair, this was a re-noticed item, so if we could reread into the record the new project description, please.
Okay, thank you. I will
Sure,
do that.
Fred.
That's mine. Okay, this is a revised project description, proposal to demolish an existing two-story, 4,015 square foot residence and construct a new 5,801 square foot, one-story, single-family residence with a 5,660 square foot basement, which includes a 795 square foot garage and a 2,228 square foot workshop. The project includes approximately 1,968 cubic yards of grading cut under the building footprint, 1,494 cubic yards of grading cut outside the building footprint, 3,413 cubic yards of fill, and 49 cubic yards of export. The project proposes the removal of 10 fruit trees, two Tipuana trees and 4 jacaranda trees, the relocation of 4 olive and 2 oak trees, and the addition of 2 new oak trees. Additional improvements include a new swimming pool, trellis-covered garden patio, and motor court. Proposed total of 8,631 square feet on a 65,340 square foot lot located in the Hillside Design District is 163.5% of the guideline maximum floor-to-lot area ratio. The project received staff hearing officer approval for a zoning modification to provide more than 750 square feet of garage accessory space. Katie, before I have the applicants start their presentation, is there anything I need to know from staff?
Not at this point, Mr. Chair, but if you do find the project supportable, I'll go over some necessary findings that you'll need to make.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, it's yours to present.
Great, thank you. I think I'll just go down your list and start with the grading, which that was the main concern that you had at the last meeting. And the good news is we've worked closely with Stacy, the landscape architect, and Mike Viatoni, our civil engineer. And whereas last time around we were proposing 1,488 cubic yards of export, by working with more earth on the site, integrating it into a lower terrace area that we already had planned with Stacy, we were able to significantly reduce that to 49 cubic yards.
Okay. I assume you're going to share with us how you did that at some point.
Yeah, would you like to do that?
No, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt your presentation. Go ahead.
Yeah. So the second concern that was brought up was the lantern effect, and I think the project there was a comparison made to that adjacent residence that's right in this right here that has the top of the hill with the palm trees, and I was kind of surprised about that because our project that's not really a fair comparison. This project really isn't visible, so we've done a view study here showing where the project is visible from, and this is our project site here, and except for right at the street, right close to the project, the site and our proposed residence isn't really visible till almost a mile out in these areas here. I'm going to show you some views, but it's not visible from the south. If we could just, I think the part of our project that has the most glass is to the south and the west, and if we look from Hope Ranch or for Campanile down on that pull-out by the Cliff Drive, the project, you can't see the site from those places. So these demonstrate that. And then from down here at the new roundabout on Las Positas, again, the project isn't visible. But I think it's important to note that the palm tree house is, and ours isn't. This is, if you took a telephoto lens from that same spot and really zoomed in, you can see, I'm looking upside down, but how this house is very visible, but that ours isn't. So, and I'll go relatively quickly, and if you want me to show you more. So then, oops, thank you. The north part of our house, which if you spin the model around, doesn't have glass. There is a big slope behind it, but we went ahead and looked at where it might be visible. And the one area that you do get a peek is here from where Las Positas hits the freeway. There are some areas out here in the city further, but it's literally a pinprick. But this is what it looks like from Las Positas. And then as you go down Las Positas, we have a couple more shots here and here that, again, it's not visible from, and again, if you do the zoom view again, this is the house on the top of the hill with the palm trees, and our site isn't visible. Same thing for Hidden Valley, it's not visible. Veronica Springs, which is, these are taken from this area, the project isn't visible.
That over the hill there.
Yeah, it's on the other side.
Which side of that?
So then, the east side of the project, which if we turn this around, there is some glass, but we also have landscaping, and we have very significant overhangs, so the glass is receded back into the project. So, and then again, from these areas, which is Bel Air, Aliens Park, and over here on the Mesa, you can get some very minimal views, but again, they're very distant views. So that's Bel Air, again Bel Air. And Aliens. Again, if you use the other house as a reference. Same things from the Mesa. You know, it's just basically a pinprick view. This is Alta Mesa. And then from the west side, it isn't visible. So again, we went from the project site, you have to go out almost a mile before you see it, and then we went out 1 to 2 miles. You can find it other places, but at that point it's so visually minuscule, it really, the lantern effect isn't an issue. So hopefully that addresses the lantern effect issue. As far as the exterior lighting is concerned, again, there was a comparison to that house and the palm trees with the Christmas lights. We're definitely not doing lights that aren't recessed. Everything's recessed. It's facing down. We're not lighting trees or the building. Everything is going to be on a lighting control system. All lights will have dimmers. They'll have a timer for shut-off. The lighting itself, we're really using it for task lighting. We're not lighting every space like a hospital or something. It's in our client's best interest to minimize the lighting to see the views at night. If you had the house really brightly lit, you wouldn't be able to see the views. That's the palm tree house, yeah. And I think the one space that the kitchen is where we typically would have more task lighting. It's tucked way back in and is not readily visible with a lot of the other living spaces. We're also, on every space, we're going to have shades in black in color that provide shading during the daytime and also are used for privacy at night. So we have a lot of options for reducing light. And I guess maybe we could show those cut sheets of the lights real quick. Or why don't we just wait till... Okay, so that's the lighting. FAR, there was a concern brought up again about the FAR, and I don't know if you all remember our first round with you. We did that in quite a bit of detail. But I'll summarize. Trish did a an FAR study for us that documented that our house was well within, consistent with the other homes in the neighborhood. And I also think it's really important to note that even though we have a higher FAR, the visible portion of our project, which is the upper floor, actually calculates to 109% of the FAR, which is significantly less. So from a visual perspective, our house has a lot less impact than some of those other higher FAR houses in the neighborhood where they don't have a basement and you see the whole house. And again, the way we've designed it is integrated into the site and stepped in and all that too. I think it's also really important to note that we went through an extensive review process with the Homeowners Association. We had story poles at the site. We went through that process. The Homeowners Association gave us design approval, and the neighbors, including the adjacent neighbors, all support the project. So we did a lot of work on that.
Which there's a neighbor here right now that's supporting it as well.
Okay. One thing that wasn't on your minutes that was brought up in the conversation was the glass railings. We do have some glass railings on just on the south side of the house in the west, right here. And
Could you put the model on the camera just so you can see? Thank you.
Thanks. So again, it's in our best design interest not to have railings and look to the views without seeing them, but there are certain cases where the site drops off and we need them. They're all located in this area of the house, which is the least visible portion, as I showed you in the study. They aren't really visible to the community. We also would be willing to use an anti-reflective glass, similar to what was used at the Coral Casino, which standard glass reflects light at 8 to 9%, and this glass is less than 2%, which is a significant reduction in an order of magnitude. And I have some photos of the Coral Casino. We went out there a couple days ago and took photos to show that really from all angles there isn't significant reflection. So again, I think number one, our glass rails aren't that visible, and then I think this would also, so it's walking down that glass rail, and of course ours is only a 42-inch rail. This is much taller. This is a windscreen. And with that, I think probably the best thing would be to look at the landscaping and then the lighting.
And how you dealt with the grading too.
Do you want to present the grading,
How you
how you reduced the grading? Did you want to present?
Well, I think has more to do with Stacy's plans.
Okay.
And the trade places.
So, just as a overview, reminder of what kind of the scenario we're looking at is somewhat of an understated, simplistic landscape that's going to complement the architecture, be subtle on the site. There's not a lot of color, a lot of natural materials, etc. So these are just some images that we've been working with and developing the style and characteristics of the project. We've got a mixture of native and drought-tolerant plants. The eucalyptus is an existing prominent feature, that's why we kind of included it here. And then some of the, the oaks, some proposed other planting that we might use, but keeping it very subtle. So, just props for imagery. Okay, so for the landscape, so in order to help with the grading, basically we originally had this structure down in here, and the goal was to keep, any excess soil on site. So building this up slightly, there's quite a bit of space in here. We already had a retaining wall here, so stepping it down a little bit, there was some existing fruit trees, just random stone fruit and some ailing citrus trees in this area.
Alien.
Alien, no, ailing. They're not very healthy. And the owners love the idea of including some additional olive trees. We have existing olives that were on site that we're going to reutilize for screening purposes. So we added this alley of olive trees down here, which helps buffer the lower property as well and provides a nice terraced pathway down there. So that's where the extra soil went with grading, and we just massaged it back into the existing landscape. So the nice thing was with the wall that was at this pool was originally a taller wall, so now it just kind of, everything's pretty well tucked in there, as you can see from the model.
So that reflects the new grading.
That's the new,
model?
right.
Got it.
So it's a little more subtle. I really like it, and that row of olive trees at the bottom gives this really great buffer. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think so.
And that was approximately plus 3 feet in that entire area, so that took a lot of
Yeah,
other soil there
it
to bring
feathered
up.
out, yeah. So, but it worked out nicely. I think it was a good improvement. The rest of the property, I don't know if you recall, but it really hasn't changed too much from what we presented before. So the motor court coming up in here, simplistic landscape and entry walkways to the front door, utilizing natives and drought-tolerant plant material, some view patios tucked in, master bedroom, and some circulation routes for functionality and to be able to get around the property. The terrace relates to the house. The pool is tucked into this landscape area with an infinity edge and a zero edge along the deck side here. The spa is tucked in here, and then this steps down. It gets a little more naturalistic as we get away from the property or from the house. These elements are stormwater retention elements that are located in various areas that we've been working with the civil engineer on that to keep water on site. And then down in this area, we've got some great little locations for some, artwork, that subtle artwork. Maybe it's vertical stones or something special, and then the covered terrace in this area that steps down, decomposed granite down in here, and some simplistic planting in here, and then it gets a little more loose. This is mostly slope, so drought-tolerant type ground covers and probably some accents with succulents or different elements mixed in as well.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, the lighting. So usually with lighting, we want to keep it very subtle. I'm not into really bright, over-the-top lighting. So basically lighting that's needed just to get around the property, down lights. The FX luminaire are great. They're all low voltage. They patina into a nice dark bronze color and disappear. A couple path options, some down lighting from the trees for lighting the pathways, and then maybe some accent lighting, and if we have situations where there's steps or along the walls, just for circulation purposes. And then maybe a trellis light in this covered trellis area that would be subtle. All of them have long shrouds and are low voltage. We never like to see the source of the light. Only a soft effect. That's kind of that.
Anything else?
The lighting for the house, we're looking at a small aperture recessed downlights. This is the trim for it. So it's very minimal recessed.
Okay, anything else that you need to present?
Uh-oh.
See the legend placement sheet. Can I see your just your legend of all the
Computer went.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I have a black and white down there here.
Yeah, there was a problem with the PDF when it was sent to the printer.
I like to print mine in-house.
So anything
There was a
else you need to
preliminary
present? Is that
Ledger
it?
there.
Okay. All right, so before we go to questions or comments of the board,
Oh, I do have one more note.
Oh, go ahead.
We removed any acacias, and we changed the Acer palmatum to a Circes, the one that was here in the shade.
Great.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. So before we go to comments and questions of the board, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Katie, did we have any written comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
Seeing no one come forward, the chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
Yeah, I had a question about the plate height of the basement. Was that lowered, or was that a question, or how was that?
The plate height is the same as last we proposed. We were able to deal with the grading quantities through the landscaping in other ways.
I see.
Okay, other questions?
I don't have any questions.
Yes, Lisa.
If you could just tell us again what you meant by the apparent FAR looking like 109, because accounting for the basement under grade.
Sure.
That's what you
Sure,
that's what you meant, right?
we took just the FAR of the upper level,
Yes.
which is basically the majority of the house that you see, and calculated it the same way as you go for the entire house, it would be 109%.
Okay. Claro.
So the thinking is the house really in many ways appears to be a single-story residence.
Yeah.
Whereas other houses in the neighborhood that have as high or higher FAR than ours with the basement are on grade and totally visible. So basically significantly more visible than our project.
Okay, thank you. And I have a question for Stacy. How will the majority of the ground covers and the exterior be irrigated? I didn't look at your irrigation plan.
Yeah, drip irrigation predominantly. There's only one little tiny patch of lawn, which would have, spray irrigation, obviously, with flats. But drip irrigation would make sense for this property.
Thanks.
Okay. Other questions? Okay, if there are no further questions. I guess I have one question. So you mentioned, maybe you can just show me on this plan, the glass railing is being proposed where? How far, from where to where?
It would be along this area right here, where this grade drops off.
Of that retaining wall?
Yes, like if you can look on the model too, and then I believe there's a little section right here possibly, depending on how we work out the grades.
Was that line there overhangs, right? Is that right?
Yes, actually,
That's
that,
the
I think we, well,
So it's on this corner?
yeah,
Yeah,
you can
that-
see
A little
on the
bit there,
model.
okay. All right, and then, I think you answered that question in the final part of your presentation, and I just scaled what I needed to scale. Okay, so I think I'm done with questions. Okay, other questions? All right, let's go to comments. The applicant is here for project design approval. Katie, do we need to have any information on the result of the staff hearing officer?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, I do have one question, one real quick. The roofing material.
Oh, the materials board, we forgot that. Glad you asked. The materials are the same as what we showed you last time, but we did go ahead and add the roofing, which is this gray-colored membrane
Non-reflective.
roofing. Non-reflective, yeah.
Okay. Anything else? No. Comments, we're at comment time.
I can go on to say that I think you've satisfied all our questions, and I think how you dealt with the grading was very well done. I think you've satisfied all our guidelines. I think the size, bulk, and scale is appropriate for the neighborhood, so I can support the project.
Okay.
I'll
Lisa?
follow. Thank you for the work you've done with that grading. And it all worked out really, really well. And now somehow the previous rendition just looked like it could be more, and now it is. It just looks so complete. And yes, you've satisfied our requests, and I will be in support of the project now. I feel the size, bulk, and scale also are appropriate for the site and the neighborhood.
I like the fact that it fits the hill. It doesn't, a lot of houses up there, you look up there, especially the tree-lined house, it sits up on top of the hill, you can't miss it. It's 2-story high, but this flows over the top of the hill. I approve it. I like it. It fits our guidelines.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you for going to the extraordinary length to show us what can be seen from around the city.
Yeah.
That's a huge effort. I certainly appreciate the whole issue of the grading. That was going to be a big issue. In fact, staff was advising us that we would have to go through a whole different thing if it was more than 500 cubic yards. So the 49 eliminates that whole conversation. I have two dilemmas for me. One is just the sheer FAR, but I certainly appreciate the figure that you gave us of 109%, and we have approved projects within that realm that are single story. In fact, there's one down the hill, and we approved pretty close to that. It was 104, 105%. And I still have an issue with the glass railing. Now, is that a deal breaker for my vote? I don't know. And let me share with you what the issue is. This board has, at least in the 6 years I've been on it, we really haven't allowed glass railings anywhere in the city. The board has felt it's just not appropriate to Santa Barbara. Might be appropriate to Hermosa Beach or Malibu or somewhere else, but not to Santa Barbara. So we've made a lot of folks unhappy because they can't have glass railings. And a lot of folks didn't have the budget to come up with what you've come up with. So I'm not feeling comfortable about that piece of it. But I can appreciate the fact that you've gone to considerable length to get this house to sit on that top of that hill in a way that hopefully, when it's all done and the lights are turned on at night, the applicants, residents can enjoy the view they have of the city and the ocean and Goleta, et cetera, and that it won't impede on the rest of us that live in the city. So with that, I'm probably going to vote for project approval, but I'm doing it reluctantly because I'm still not satisfied that the glass railing is an appropriate use in Santa Barbara, and I'm still not quite comfortable at the size of this house. But obviously the client has made some good choices about their engineering staff and their architect, and their contractor, so I hope you guys will do your due diligence when this thing gets put in place so that Joe can come back to me and say, hey, I saw a house that turned out really nice. Which is what he did this morning, or a little earlier, about a house we reviewed quite a while ago that's now complete, and it actually looks pretty good. So with that, those are my comments. Any further comments?
I think the glass railing, reason we've not allowed it in the past, and it comes up every time, it's reflective. It's totally reflective. And granted, your budget allows you to do away with that reflection. And I'm in agreement with it. I like, I'll take that back. I can't say
Well,
I like.
and I'd say glass railing on a Spanish colonial is
Well, we're not looking at a Spanish colonial.
exactly. So
Yeah.
that's my point.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all I
Now,
have.
I'll give that back to you. So I do have one question before we introduce any kind of motion. Katie, I have a document here called Standard Short-Term Construction-Related Conditions. Was that already introduced at some point?
No, so if you support the project today and want to give the project design approval, staff recommends that you adopt the standard short-term conditions of approval for grading and whatnot, construction hours.
Okay.
And then also, if you do make a motion that supports project design approval, we'll need to make the hillside and grading findings.
Okay. That's in our,
Yeah, I have a copy for you.
what's that? Of this thing? Yeah, I was just going to ask you all, are you familiar with this?
No.
Okay. Let me just, basically, the reason this is in play, if this was a project that would have to go under the Planning Commission process, the Planning Commission has in their normal applications a whole series of things that one has to do during construction in terms of keeping the dust down, monitoring where people, the workers park, et cetera, et cetera. We don't normally do that, but we've had some projects, particularly up on the Riviera, where the construction piece of it has really been the most problematic because the streets get clogged with pickups and the dust and the noise, and we get all kinds of complaints. So in certain circumstances, we do require the applicant to more or less go along with what the Planning Commission would normally put on a project, which deals with landscaping, herbicides, irrigation, construction-related traffic trips, time frame, hauling routes. You know, you don't have a lot of choice up here on this hill. There's one way out, one way in. Traffic control, staging and storage, air quality, dust nuisance, particulate matter, biological resources, grading, erosions during construction, et cetera, et cetera. So if we choose, and I get a sense the board will choose to give this project design approval, we will probably most likely incorporate this document to our motion. Because we're not giving you final approval yet, you'll have some time to review this and bring back to us anything that you might be concerned about at final.
What is that document? What's it called?
This is the standard short-term construction-related conditions. So it's the normal stuff that the Planning Commission puts on projects. Because of the nature of what we do, we don't often do this, but we have in the past done it on some projects.
It's just to ensure
Right.
construction-related impacts, or that it adheres to the arborist reports and geotechnical reports, so it's standard for a lot of projects.
Okay. So just so you know, you'll have
Sure.
an opportunity to review it, and if you've got an issue, you can bring it back when you come back for final.
That's fine.
Okay, any further discussion? Katie, anything else we need to know? Okay, then the chair would entertain a motion. Okay, so does someone want to make the motion, or,
I'll make a motion.
okay, then I'm going to give you, this is project design approval, so you
Yeah.
need to do all the hillside findings and that, and you probably need at least to include the title.
Okay. I propose, my motion is that we approve the design approval for the project, and the board appreciates what you've come back with grading, showing us how you've reduced the amount of earth removed. We appreciate the lighting and the views of what the people can see from distance that you've done. Landscaping. And we also have to include the short-term conditions that the Planning Commission will put in front of this.
Can you just note the date on the conditions of approval?
August 21st, 2017. And this one here?
No, you gotta do-
Hillside. Okay, Hillside. We have to. We find
They're
it
also on
appropriate.
They're
Sorry.
also on the sheet. if
Yeah,
you
they're
need
also on
help
the sheet.
freezing.
Essentially, what I assume your motion is going to be is that you find the grading is
Appropriate.
going to be appropriate, that it protects the natural topography of the existing hillside, and that the development scale of the project is appropriate to the adjacent hillside neighborhood.
Yes.
Is that language you want to put in your motion?
Yes.
And then also the grading ones right below it, please.
Grading. They're coming up. They're always coming up with new things for us to
Okay,
include.
so you
in.
just need to read those three things.
Okay. Having to do with grading, the proposed vegetation removal will not be significant. And proposed vegetation removal will not cause a substantial loss of southern oak woodland habitat. And the proposed vegetation removal is in compliance with applicable provisions of Chapter 22.10.
Okay? Right?
And the MPO findings, please.
And
And
then
in NCO findings,
NPO finding.
NPO, neighborhood compatibility.
NCO. We find that the project is consistent with appearance and compatible with the neighborhood, and has quality of architectural materials, and follows our good neighbor guidelines, and that's basically all of them.
Mr. Motion Maker, I'm going to suggest a couple of fine tuning. That the motion includes specifically that the board recognizes that the applicant has now proposed 49 cubic yards of export, and that the board has recognized in this particular case that 163.5% FAR is unique to this site and is acceptable. That in this particular case only, that the applicant's proposal of non-reflective glass railing at a portion at southwest, I think it is, southwest portion and southeast portion of the first floor terrace is acceptable in this case only.
Yes,
Acceptable
that
language.
is acceptable.
And if the maker of the motion could also include that the project complies with the staff hearing officer resolution, number 024-17.
Is that acceptable
yeah.
language?
Yes.
Okay. Everyone understand all the language pieces? Okay.
Said all of that.
It's important because should this project get appealed, or 2 years from now, somebody has a question about what were these folks thinking, it needs to be in the language. Otherwise, we have to rely on our own memories, which, to leave my case, is not very good at all.
Mine's definitely not that.
All right, so that's the motion on the floor. Do I have a second to that motion? Okay, Lisa seconds the motion. Is there further discussion to the motion on the floor? Hearing no further discussion, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, you have project design approval. We'll see you here at final.
Announce the 10-day appeal period.
And it does have a 10-day appeal period. Appeal goes directly to the city council.
Don't tick off your neighbors.
That'd be good. Katie?
How many is left?
I just need one copy.
Okay, so keep that one. Do you need the color?
That was supposed to be simple.
And everything is simple.
Thank you. Thanks.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Cyril? There. Goes to there. Okay, we're going to go to item number 3, 1563 Sycamore Canyon Road. You'll come forward, please. And just so we don't get a lot of feedback, let's turn that one off. Let's turn this guy off, just so we don't get... Okay. Yes, you could introduce yourself, please.
Yes, my name's Bill Cottingham, and I'm the owner of the property.
Okay, welcome. I'm going to read, because this is a new item to the board, I'm going to read into the record the project description. This is a proposal to construct a new 1,081 square foot, one-story, single-family residence with an attached 464 square foot, two-car garage on a currently vacant lot. Other site improvements include minor landscaping and site paving. Proposed total of 1,545 square feet of development on a 23,654 square foot lot located in the Hillside Design District is 33% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. Action may be taken if sufficient information is provided. The project requires an environmental finding for a CEQA guidelines section 15183 exemption projects consistent with the general plan. So welcome. If you could share with us what you're doing.
Yes, actually, this, as you noted, property is currently vacant. I bought it earlier this year. The prior owner of this property actually demolished the house that had been on it. This particular house is one of 9 homes developed all approximately at the same time, about 1950. So they share, all 9 homes, a common private bridge over the creek, and then they share a common drive. This particular lot is at the very end of that drive. So due to this gentleman who demolished the existing house, the original house, had intended to go forward and build another home. Sadly, health issues compelled him to sell the lot. So I picked it up, so I'm moving forward with that. So my view of this project, if appropriate, is I'm proposing to replace an original home with this home. The original home was a single-story, single-family residence, 1,425 square feet. This home is just slightly smaller, with the exception of the 2-car garage, a modern code requirement for 2 covered car parking. Additionally, because this is high fire, I've talked extensively with the fire marshal and his crew regarding this property and the ability to meet modern code for fire protection, given the time frame when these 9 homes were originally built. You'll see in the submittal materials that there's a letter from the fire marshal supporting this project in this size and location on the lot. So that's probably an important thing to consider. In addition, regarding good neighbor policy compliance, the folks on this side have requested, this regards landscaping mods that you noted in your original comments, that a bamboo hedge that used to be there be put back in if I was so willing, and I am. So that's a short section of this northern periphery. As you can tell, that this is the hillside, it's natural. I don't think it's ever been developed since these homes were built originally in the 50s, the last 60-some years. There is a home down on this side, and I'm putting in the noted hedgerow just for that portion to give them privacy as well. My immediate neighbor here, in talking with him, there's an existing rough hedgerow there. It's a variety of things, and it's pretty much on his side. He waters it, he takes care of it. It's about 10 to 12 feet tall. He's comfortable in leaving it exactly as it is, so that's my intention. There was one comment about CEQA that you mentioned, so I've put together, well, I went and looked at Title 14, and I'm going to request that you folks consider a Class 2 exemption. I've put together this one brief that pulls out Title 14, Chapter 3, Article 19, boy, it goes on, Section 15302, the number you had mentioned. And this speaks to replacement or reconstruction, a Class 2. And I think the language out of Title 14 that's applicable to this project says Class 2 consists of replacement, existing structures, referring to the house that was there 60-some years, where the new structure will be located on the same site, and that the new structure, quote unquote, substantially the same purpose and capacity as the original. So both single-family dwellings roughly of the same size, pretty much exactly the same location on the lot. So I'm hopeful that a Class 2 exemption is allowed for this based on that. This, by the way, this little memo that I put together is not part of the original application. Obviously, this is a conceptual review, and I'm just continuing to work forward with it. So I will be attaching this as I go forward. Let's see here. Because this is an interior lot, of course, 15-foot setbacks are required for this. So because this is a one-story home with a large setback, solar access is lots of margin to that. There was those calculations in the package that you're looking at. No grading is proposed because these 9 homes were developed all as a group. I have not wanted to propose anything, especially in a high hilly district like this, that would change the water flow or runoff patterns that have been going on for 60-some years now. The neighbors seem supportive of that. Of course, we have our folks, Jim, over in the Creeks Division. I've yet to speak with him personally, but I want to make sure that that approach is acceptable to those folks. I know there are storm water management requirements these days, and I don't know if that's going to impose something on this that would significantly change the way we manage the runoff of this property. Again, I'm proposing no grading changes so that I don't upset the existing water flow off. But I'll speak with him. We'll see what he has to say for the next step. That's my intention. Other than the home, the minor landscaping and the concrete drive, which requires a pull-in, a back-out, and allows you to exit. Remember, you are at the end of the driveway, so this needs a turnaround capability. That's why the driveway area is a little larger than one might imagine. So you can pull in nose first in the drive, back out, and then back down the drive. If you were to look at the photos that were provided in the application, first is a Google Earth image, so you get a sense of the terrain and all the neighboring houses. But with the vicinity map, as well as in the Google Earth image, you can see the shared driveway, this particular lot, and then I've notated the various photos, the directions you're looking at, and then put a legend on the first page so you have a sense of the direction and the views of which you're looking. And as you can see, it's difficult to see the neighboring homes despite not yet having in the privacy hedges that I've just spoken to. So it'll even make it more country-like and very much more private. Questions?
Yeah, we need to, because this is an architectural review board, we not
Right.
only look at the site conditions, we do look at the architecture. So I assume if I turn the page, we're
Yes,
gonna
I
have
can
some
speak to that.
elevations.
So there's a floor plan. So this is a two-bedroom, two-bath house. It sort of uses the more modern, popular two-master suite version of a two-bedroom house. Each bedroom has a full bath, et cetera, walk-in closets. Again, about 1,100 square foot. It's one story. It's a modern design, so the ceiling heights inside the house are 11 feet. It's a flat roof. Top of the roof is about 12 feet above grade, as I recall. The glass portion of this house faces to the south. So the Google Earth image or the vicinity map helps you orient your eye to that. And although this is conceptual, we've already started putting together the sheets for doors, windows, and everything else, so we've gotten a good leg up.
Let's go back. What I'm looking for is elevations. Okay, what we don't have is elevations.
Excuse me, the next page, I think.
Yeah,
Oops.
that's-
Did you want to see isometrics?
Those are wonderful, but they're not elevations.
Yeah. Prior page, please.
Okay. That's kind of, oh, there they are, okay.
Got them? There we go.
All right, that's what I was looking for. Okay.
When you come into the drive, this is the entrance to the driveway.
Okay.
There's the large wall, which you'll see in the isometrics if you were to glance at that, and that is the front door.
Okay.
Kitchen, closet, and a bathroom on the master side.
Okay. Okay, anything else to present?
That's all.
Okay, before we go to questions and comments from the board, is there anyone in the public wishing to address this project? Yes, if you'll come forward, please, and at some point,
We'll need to have you fill out a speaker slip as well, please.
have you fill out those yellow slips. But if you could sit right here, please, and we'll turn that microphone on. Okay?
My name is Wayne.
Okay, you need to be able to sit down and speak in. This is all being recorded and broadcast, so people have to hear you. So if you could talk into the microphone.
Sure.
And you can pull it toward you.
Thank you.
Quite
My
flexible.
name is Wayne. This is my wife Janine.
Okay, and you are neighbors?
We lived next door for 29 years.
Okay, before you get too much further, it's very helpful to us. So you're living here or here?
There.
This is the road that goes out to the bridge.
We're the neighbor.
So you hear the neighbor here? Okay, all right. good.
And this is a picture of,
Okay. Ari, if you'll sit down and talk into the microphone.
Sure.
Put the picture up here.
yeah, you guys can zoom in on the picture maybe?
Yeah, they'll do that for us, but if you'll talk to that, that way you're all recorded and we know what you said.
Okay,
Okay, there.
testing.
Okay, it all works. Okay. So this is a photograph from your home?
This is, that orange tree sits on my property, and if you look, you'll see kind of a wooden post in about the middle, near your
Right
finger.
there.
And that's about where my property meets Bill's property.
Okay, and then
And
this-
that's the old house that used to be there.
Okay, so this was taken before the house was torn down?
Yes, that picture was taken 29 years ago.
Okay.
And we were good friends with the people who lived there. That house is not exactly located in the same spot Bill is planning to build his house. But we're not opposing.
Sir, I think you keep putting your hand on the on and off
Take your
button.
hand off.
Don't touch the bottom, and then you're fine.
That's it.
Yeah, there you go. You can touch
Keep
that
it
part.
right. Okay, yeah.
Okay.
It's very precarious.
Okay.
We wish not to oppose what Bill is doing here, but merely to ask that a couple things be addressed on our behalf, if possible. One is, we would like to have his house as far away from our property as possible. The old house was 50 feet or more away from our property. Now, I realize there's no rules that say he has to do that, and I understand. But I wanted to know, how far is this plan proposal as far as distance from his house to our nearest property line? I just want to know what that amount of distance is.
We can probably tell
There's
you that.
51 feet there.
Tell you that in a second. This is
There's
1 inch
51
equals
feet.
10 feet. Okay. So
I
right
believe,
now, that corner is 31 feet from the property line
To the garage.
to the garage, okay?
Okay.
And to your fence, I'm assuming you're saying that's the property line where this fence
Yeah.
is? Okay.
Yeah,
So
approximately.
your house is above that somewhere,
yeah,
okay? So it's at least 30 feet away at this point,
okay.
okay?
If I'm not mistaken, that measurement is 31 feet, 7 inches?
Yes.
Okay. My wife and I feel if he maintains that distance, that we would not have an objection.
Okay.
But we just wanted to state that if the house moves closer to our property, we would not be comfortable with that. Like I said, I realize we don't have any legal way to prevent it, but we're asking for that cooperation if we can get it.
Okay. Okay, your 2 minutes is up. Does anyone have anything else?
My wife just wanted to mention something about the hedge, I believe.
I don't get 2 minutes.
You get 2 minutes.
Oh, I do?
You each get 2 minutes, yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, so I was looking up, okay, I am concerned about, I didn't want that bamboo hedge in a little tiny sliver of dirt next to a gigantic patch of pavement, right up against our, there's a stone wall there now. We have a stone wall that separates us from them. And so I was hoping that the hedge could be a little bit set back, because the positioning of that is that a tall hedge there is going to completely cut out the sunlight to my trellis, my geraniums. That's a big row of flowers that decorate the wall from our view, which I invited him to look at, but he didn't want to come to our yard and look at our view.
Oh, Wayne had me over.
Okay. Okay.
Decorative bamboo.
Right, the decorative, the lighter bamboo, and then is it going to have a limit of 8 feet, like this plan says?
I'll go over that in some detail once
The
you're
the existing hedge that had been there, that basically died, was decorative bamboo. It wasn't the real big
Right,
stuff.
we'll go over that once you're finished.
Okay, and then I have another concern with all that concrete, because what you guys aren't seeing, but you can see in a little bit in the snapshot, is that the only wet running creek in the front country is at the end of the property adjoining him, sort of 90 degrees from us, the one at the upper right of the.
Right.
So the creek is down there, so it's a lot of wildlife that goes to the water back and forth across the creeks, and there are a lot of, there are everything from tree frogs, quail, small mammals, a lot of birds, a lot of breeding birds that come and breed there. And so I just wish that it didn't have, that it could maybe could be paving stone or gravel or something that's not as industrial and as unfriendly to the wildlife.
Okay.
And could we have, are we allowed to ask for any setback? Because if that hedge is growing right up there, it's going to block all the light to my plants in my backyard.
I'm going to go over that in detail.
Because that's from the
In a
south.
few minutes, okay? So can we have that, or do you want to keep that?
Well, do you want to keep it permanently, is your
It would go into the file.
It's an old photograph.
It's an old photograph. You may want to keep it.
Yeah,
and-
it's my only.
Okay, okay, it's up to you. Okay, thank you so much.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Anyone else in the audience wishing to speak to the project? Okay, yeah, if you'd go over and take one of the city yellow slips over right by the wall there, if you'll fill those out, please, so we have a record.
She was addressing this area right along
right
here.
there. Yeah, okay. Okay, anyone else in the audience wishing to address the project? Okay, seeing no one else come forward, Katie, did we have any written communication?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Chair will close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions. Before I have you guys start asking questions, I just want to clarify, on this sheet, there is a lot of notes in red here. Are those your notes, or whose notes are those?
No.
Those are plan check corrections from zoning staff.
So zoning has taken a look at this already?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, and these reflect the zoning issues. Okay, thank you. Okay, questions?
Didn't address, I went out there and looked at it, and it seems to me this was in front of us a couple years ago, year and a half ago. It's just, I remember driving down that lane and looking,
I don't remember it all, but I've driven down.
but never went any farther. Just
Driven down this lane many times because my daughter's best friend in the whole world, maid of honor,
live right there.
lives in the next house.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
I know the area.
no landscaping at all is planned immediately around the house, meaning here, 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 and here.
Comment from zoning review in the comments that they fed back to me said that I need to put together a landscape plan beyond just speaking to the good neighbor compliance growth that I noted
Yeah.
in this conceptual layout.
I
So I
was-
will be doing that, but my
Okay,
intent-
Lisa,
we'll
you
be-
will push.
We will be sharing some of that here shortly.
Okay.
Other questions?
No, I have comments, but I don't have any more
Okay,
questions.
I just have some clarification questions because this is here for concept review. So obviously you haven't made a lot of final decisions, but let's use, the elevations. Do you have a sense of what your materials are?
Yes. So the wall materials will be stucco. Remember, this is high fire.
Okay.
So the roof has to be Class A1, flat. The metal, the glazing, all have metal frames.
Okay. Do you have any idea what you might do for a garage door?
It's an overhead retractable. We've made no decision at this
Okay.
point in
What about
time.
the front door?
It'll be glass.
Glass front door, okay. And then the fascia boards, or this fascia
I
element?
can't speak to that, but I believe it's going to be metal to be
Okay.
consistent with the fire code,
Okay.
as I understand from my contractor.
This element here is
Okay, so it's just a large architectural
just
feature
a feature,
wall.
okay. And then
Stucco.
the roof, the top of the roof is flat, so what are you thinking, what kind of roof material are you thinking about?
I know it's Class 1, but I can't speak to that today.
We may have some suggestions for you.
Okay?
When you present it to us again, bring out those things that you're saying verbally on the drawings.
Okay.
Got it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it's much more helpful if you, part of this process is you have to sell us on what this thing looks like. So if your drawings really reflect what it looks like, that makes it go a lot easier for us
Got it.
to make that decision.
Rather than just a note here of, put it on the
If you
drawing.
have your designer render it, it's much more helpful. Okay, other questions? No?
No, I don't.
Yes, Lisa, go ahead.
Curious about the grading. It kind of looks like you're sitting in a bit of a hole. Are you gonna just have the water sheet drain through that clear area? I was surprised at the amount of open space there, if it's just gonna all. Is the grading gonna sheet drain into the creek area towards the
So I
creek?
can speak to the current drainage pattern. You may recall that earlier this spring, we had a Friday, a very special
Yeah,
Friday,
we
where we
did.
had this horrific amount of rain. I had not yet purchased the property yet. Part of due diligence was I trotted out there and made it up to this property, and I can speak in that rain event what I observed. So perhaps that will address
Yes,
your question, or at
that was a
least
good one.
part of it. Obviously, with a sloping hill here, my neighbors whom just spoke, their house actually is at a higher elevation, okay? So what happens is this water comes here, the flow direction tends to be down in this direction. I have a property here, his property line is Creekside, the home on this side, their property over there is Creekside. The general flow is down the hill, this way, and back to the creek over those two adjacent properties. That's my current understanding.
Okay. Other questions, Lisa? Okay, I'm going to dive right into this piece because this is what you're going to determine once you meet with the Creeks people. Essentially, you can't allow any water to leave this site that historically has been on here, and the minute you introduce hard surface, you've disrupted that. So that's what they're going to talk about. And I can tell you that typically they're probably not going to allow you to do a concrete driveway. Okay, it's going to need to be an impervious driveway. The minute you do more than 500 square feet of impervious or pervious material on the ground, you're pushed to what they call a Stormwater Management Plan 3, which is very technical.
I read through that
Okay,
earlier.
so that gets very complicated very fast.
Yes.
Okay, so I suspect you're going to get this sorted out once you go through that process. So it's not going to be like this. I suspect that Lisa and others on the board are going to definitely, and I'm going to want to see a landscape plan.
Yes,
So you're
that
going
was
to need
requested.
you're going to need to return to us with a landscape.
I see.
There's a couple of things you have to do. Return to us with a concept landscape plan, not only of what you're going to introduce as landscape material around the house, but what are you going to retain? So the hillside is natural wooded vegetation. You need to be able to delineate where that is versus what you're doing new. So that's got to show in the drawing, okay? So you're also going to need to share that with the fire department because they're going to make some decisions about specifically what you can introduce as plant material new and how you treat this hillside, okay? And that all has to go on a drawing to be documented. So that's going to be an effort that you're going to have to walk through. So Katie, I do have a question. He's, with regards to CEQA, he is essentially asking for a Class 2 exemption.
So
How does that work? and
I'll
what is it?
have the environmental analyst review it again, but it was my understanding from design review staff that it was going to require a CEQA 15183 exemption, that it was consistent with the general plan, since it's a currently vacant lot and it's not just, you're not demolishing and replacing, it's already vacant. So I'll double check with staff. We don't have the environmental signed off just yet, so we can't take action at this time, but
That's a piece of process that still has to occur. Okay. The other thing that I was curious about is the previous footprint was more or less where? Was it kind of in the same place?
The house was more like this.
Okay,
And
all right.
speaking with the fire chief, they were hopeful that the furthest point from the fire hydrant down the
Right.
shared drive be minimized, and if it was possible, to make it at least less, but certainly not to be more.
Right, and
And so by
you'll have
turning
to
the house
meet,
this way,
you'll
it
have
met
to
the
meet
spirit
their
of that.
hose-like requirement.
And so that's why it's oriented in the way that it is
Okay.
here.
All right, and then, Katie, I have a question. I recall somewhere, maybe I'm transferring it to commercial and institutional projects, but paved areas from the edge of the property line have to have a planting area of a minimum of 3 feet?
I would have to double check, Mr.
Can you-
Chair, I'm
can
not
you-
sure.
It seems like there's a number that's currently required unless that is going to get changed by the new NZO. But it seems like there's a 3-foot requirement. And then I have a question to my landscape colleague, Lisa. Bamboo,
Yeah, I wanted to comment
is
about that.
that an acceptable planting?
Well, it depends. There's a lot of different bamboos that can be considered ornamental, so you'd have to bring in a genus and species that was determined to only get that no less than 8 feet high, and that it was a clumping, not a running variety. You might be gambling less if you matched what you got on the other side, podocarpus.
Perfectly comfortable doing that if the neighbors are acceptable with it, because it's easier to maintain the given height that'll be required.
Yeah.
All right, so now let me give you the rules for what, and Katie, you can jump in if I say something incorrectly, but basically we have a city hedge ordinance. What that says is a owner is allowed to have an 8-foot hedge around the property. There is restriction at the entrance to the property, at the driveways, based on transportation's review of the plan. So how that's affected in this particular case, because you're at the end of a driveway, they'll have to look at. If you want to allow a hedge to grow higher than 8 feet, city staff is allowed to give a Katie, what's the word I'm looking for?
An administrative exception?
Administrative exception to allow it to go to 12 feet. If it goes beyond 12 feet, that then requires the two owners adjacent to whatever property lines the hedge is proposed to come to an agreement, and then has to go through a city process. So for all intents and purposes, most all hedges are limited to 8 feet. Some have to drop to 42 inches because of sightline issues. So that's something you'll need to explore both for that hedge and this hedge. With regards to the water runoff, I think you'll get a better understanding once you go through that process and they determine whether you have to be stormwater 2 or 3.
Yes.
Once you get that determined, that'll start to dictate how your landscape works. One of the things that, at least my comments, your flat roof material. More than likely, there's generally a couple of choices. There is a traditional asphalt felt built-up roof that you can purchase. They usually put a gravel ballast on the top. We will be concerned about what that color is. There's also a product, what they call single ply roofing material, which is what most folks are using today. That has a color implication. We typically have really avoided putting any light or white color because of the reflectivity and the possibility that it's seen from the adjoining hillside. So that's something you're going to have to look at. With regards to materials on the exterior of the house, you've mentioned stucco. We're going to want to see colors. At a formal point, when you receive final approval, we will in fact have to have a color board, and that's all described to you in the application.
I saw that.
We would prefer to at least see some concept of what those colors are when you come to us again for project design approval.
Okay.
At that point, and the transportation, just so this answers the neighbor's concern, transportation has very specific requirements for that entry driveway and the turnaround. So that's really going to dictate that distance from the property line to the garage. I suspect that's why they arrived at the 31-foot, 7-inch mark. You can't get it closer because you can't get the car maneuvering requirement for transportation to work in anything narrower than that. So the house isn't going to get closer.
Correct.
Let's see. I think, and the only other question I had, Katie, on your side, because of where this is being proposed and built, does, in addition to, Creeks is going to review it. Did they review the flood control situation?
So Creeks will look at the project in its relation to, it'll have creek setbacks and so forth. So once it gets routed to Creeks, we'll have a better understanding of if it's appropriate where it's located.
Right, because there is a distance from the top of the creek bank back to the house, et cetera. So I assume, and you'll need to show that on a drawing. So the drawings are going to need to be a little bit more detailed here.
I did not know that.
Because we need to understand that if we approve this house, that it's been documented that we looked at the setback from the creek.
Even though the creeks are on the far side of neighboring properties.
Exactly. So you're going to, maybe you need a little area plan or
Okay.
whatever. You're going to need some more information on these drawings, and they've already kind of started to tell you that here with the red marks. So you've got a little ways to go.
Yes.
Katie, question to you, because there's still a lot of information that we don't see yet, and I'm sure the applicant is well intended to make all that happen, and I think you just said, no, we can't take a formal action other than comments today.
That's correct.
Okay, so that's a little different than what this says.
Yes, so sufficient information wasn't.
Okay.
We don't have that at
So
this
we
time.
really can't give it a project design approval, but we can make comments, and I would encourage my colleagues to, if you're thinking at least positive about this project, that you make comments to give guidance to the applicant of what he's going to need to show next. Okay?
We're not going to give a motion, we're just going to make.
Well, you have to make a motion with comments. Motion with comments.
I have comments? You can't make a,
You can make a motion with comments only.
Motion with comments only.
Yeah.
But we need to make a motion.
But you need to make a motion, yes. You have to,
Well, we haven't had questions or comments yet.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry. Go
I
ahead.
mean, we have questions, but now. we
Okay,
can
go
have-
ahead, I'm sorry, I
Right.
kind of came in too soon.
All right,
Sorry.
so I have, of course, my first question, and I had a question, forgot it, then it came back, and then, oh, I have it. My comment is I have to turn my mic on. On your floor plan, please. Couple suggestions.
Okay?
You have no door into your garage or a window.
No.
So my feeling for your architectural style, and this looks like you've got no, this is the existing.
No, this is new. It's just a real, it's a
Slight-
less 2%
Yeah.
slope. It's flat.
I'd like to see a little more architectural interest to your structure. I guess you don't see it from the street. No one sees it, right? Other than your neighbors. I'm a little concerned of the style. I get the feeling, and I don't mean to be insulting, but it's kind of like you're putting a double wide in there. I'd like to see a little more study of the architecture to give it a little more interest. You have a very high plate height. I don't know if that's an impact either, but I'd like to see a little more study and a little care and concern of the detailing of your building, so that it just needs a little more development in your architectural style. And I also feel that you should add a door in your garage so you can have easy access from your front door. So those are my comments.
Yeah, other comments? Okay, I'm just doodling here a little bit. What tends to help us understand what you're doing is to get a little bit more
Message
rendering.
received, got it.
Okay?
Mhm.
You got to sell us, okay?
Got
And it's sometimes, even though we're trained in it, it's sometimes it's a little difficult to read your mind of what you really want to do. So the better you can share, that
Bring
helps.
renderings next
Okay?
time.
Right? Okay, other comments? Lisa, comments? No? Okay. All right, then do we have a motion? Okay.
The design board would like to ask you to return to us after listening to the following comments. We feel that the landscape, that you need to return to us with a conceptual landscape plan that shows the house in relation to setback from the creek. That you need to consider pervious grading and pervious paving.
Permeable?
Pardon?
The permeable.
Yeah, permeable,
Yeah,
permeable,
got it.
pervious, permeable. For the proposed new drive where you have currently concrete, we like the proposed bamboo hedge to be possibly changed to either podocarpus or a species of bamboo that could be guaranteed to be maintained at 8 feet, unless you want an administrative exemption that you'd have to coordinate with a neighbor, right?
Yeah.
All right, so, but we're going to say 8 feet for now. In your roofing materials, it's been recommended that you might look at single-ply roofing or asphalt, felt, and gravel, and that we'd like you to come back with a specific color.
And then we need a landscape plan.
Yeah, that's what I said. We need a developed conceptual landscape plan showing how you're going to propose screening from the neighbor, and how you're going to direct the water on the property, away from the house.
Okay, is that the motion?
That is the motion.
Okay, do I have a second to that motion?
I second it.
Okay, do we have further comments to the
Yeah, I
motion?
do.
Yes.
Fred, you were mentioning, did you say anything about the hedges? You said you were going to say something about that?
Yeah, I went through the hedge thing.
Okay,
Yeah, it's the
all
8
right.
foot, the
The
12
8
foot.
Oh.
I didn't even hear. Okay, great.
Yep.
Awesome.
And that you possibly study more detail in your architecture.
And just, can I clarify with the maker of the motion that it was continued indefinitely to the full board with comments?
Is that language acceptable to the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. Katie, I'm going to ask one other question. Do we need in this motion to put anything about this exemption class?
No,
two?
that's only when you take action and grant project design
Right
approval.
now, we're
That's
fine. Okay. All right. Is there any other questions to the motion on the floor? Okay. All right. Hearing none, the chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, we'll see you back here when you've gone down that road and done some more work.
May I ask a point of clarification?
Sure.
So regarding the CEQA exemption, if allowed, did I understand that because I purchased the property as a vacant property, that my reference, that Class 2 reference to replacing an existing house with a new house, I cannot use it because it was vacant when I purchased it?
I'll need to talk with the environmental analyst. She's more well-versed on the exemptions, but
Oh, they
they're
would
both
make that
exemptions, so
decision? I see.
they're both
Thanks.
Okay? Thank you.
Thanks again.
Okay.
What's to his advantage?
a set.
What is the advantage of this Class 2 of having the house there and demolishing it and putting?
I'm not sure.
Is this the one with his renderings?
No, I keep that
That's
one.
the one that you.
Okay.
you only had one.
Let's go to item number 4, 2417 Midcliff Road. This is a new item, and I'll be reading into the record the project description. If you could introduce yourself, Mr. Androlitis.
Joe Androlitis, architect with Androlitis Mixon Architects.
Okay, welcome. This is a new project, so I'm going to read into the application project description. This is a proposal to construct a new 444 square foot, one-story addition to an existing 2,364 square foot, one-story single-family residence with an attached 455 square foot, two-car garage. Proposed total of 3,263 square feet of development on a 31,720 square foot lot located in the Hillside Design District is 68% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. The proposed project is located in the appealable jurisdiction of the coastal zone and requires Planning Commission review for coastal development permit. This is here for comments only. The project requires a Planning Commission review for coastal development permit, and I see staff is here. I'll come to you in a. Do you have comments you'd like to make now, or shall we have our applicant make his presentation?
Just going by the directions here, Chair Sweeney. Kelly brought us in with community development. Yes, this project will be going forward for discretionary review by, I think it's the staff hearing officer, for a coastal development permit. So today they're just looking for comments on the architecture and the proposed addition, and then subsequent to the discretionary approval, it will be returning back here for a PDA and a final.
Okay.
So just comments on the style and architecture.
Okay, great, thank you. Okay, so if you could share with us what you're doing.
Okay, this is a house that was actually remodeled back in 2012 and was before you back then. It had a small addition in the back and the front, and the garage was redesigned slightly. It was basically torn down to the studs and rebuilt into kind of a Cape Cod shingle style house. The older couple that lives here now wants more living space in the house, so they've asked to enclose this kind of courtyard area in the front of their house, which you can see here in the current site plan. This is the existing layout of the house and the existing location of the entry. The existing walls of the entry will be removed, some perimeter windows at the kitchen and the laundry, and all these windows and doors will be preserved to be reused for the addition. So what we're simply doing is pushing that entry out slightly past the wall of bedroom number 2 and making the entry element slightly wider, and then these two little alcoves slightly narrower. So that allows us to keep the entry virtually like it was before, with a partial height wall as a TV wall for a new family room for the addition. Here's the existing roof plan as it is today, and then we're just basically simply extending that roof element out towards the new location of the entry and then overlapping the existing roofing on either side, and then cricketing that towards the front. I'm only showing the north elevation because that's only work we're really doing. We're not doing anything to the back. We're not touching it at all. So here's the existing elevation as you see it today. We've changed it a little bit from what it was. I didn't think the columns were in keeping with the style of the building, and the placement of the beam over the entry seemed kind of odd. So we've repositioned those elements a little higher, so you have a better view of the entry and the transom windows above, and so that the beam's not blocking the windows as they are now. And then we spread out the columns slightly to have a little more visibility from the windows on either side. So you can see here we had the bigger windows and the little alcoves. We're taking those windows and putting them next to the door. And the narrow windows that are behind the columns in the existing house, we're placing in the alcoves. We're trying to reuse those windows if possible. Everything is going to propose to match existing. You can see the existing finishes and roof material in the photos that I've submitted. The only difference in the columns here is we went with a more traditional tapered column that will be painted white to match the trim. The stone will remain the same. Right now it's just kind of a shingle siding, painted gray with white trim. All that will remain, and the new areas will match that with development. Here's a section through the building lengthwise. Here's the existing entry, and then the proposed entry. Pretty simple. The new family room will be a vaulted area, and then the window that was leading into the kitchen will be a little kind of like pass through with a maybe a wet bar below. We haven't decided yet. Here's a cross section through the existing entry, and then here's the proposed cross section. And then you can see the partial height wall, the family room, looking at the TV wall. And that's it. It's a pretty simple addition, fairly straightforward. And that concludes my presentation.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Katie, did we get any communication?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Chair will close public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions? Anyone? Okay, no questions. We have comments.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I think you've been very sensitive to the building and the style. I could support the project. I think it's fine.
Okay, other comments? Okay, I'm going to suggest some language for a motion, just to hopefully make this fairly simple, because I think we know what needs to occur. So for the purposes, the motion would be for the purposes to communicate for the Planning Commission review and the staff hearing officer, the board finds that the concept architectural plan being proposed is acceptable, that the board believes that given what they've seen, they will be able to find appropriate findings at the appropriate time, and that the general shape, size, scale, and bulk in square footage, and its location being away from the ocean to the interior courtyard is also an acceptable approach for this addition.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Wait. If I can have it,
I'm sorry.
State whether it returns back to the full board or back to consent.
Okay, let me add to my motion, if it's to the language of the motion, that the board finds that the proposed addition in architecture is sufficient at this point to move to the staff hearing officer and the planning commission process.
It needs a return back to either full board or consent.
I'd
say consent.
Yeah, let's move it to consent. Is that acceptable language for the maker and the seconder?
Yes.
Okay. All right. With that clarification, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay. We'll see you at consent.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You want to take two sets? I only need four.
Okay, oh, we're back on schedule, more or less. Okay, let's go to item number 5, 520 Stanley Drive.
Afternoon.
Hi.
Lewis Robinson, this is Brianna and
Okay,
Christian.
if you could say your names into the microphones, please, for the record.
Lewis Robinson.
Brianna Villasenor.
Christian Villasenor.
Okay, welcome. This is a new project, so I'm going to read into the record. The project description is submitted. This is a proposal to construct a new 791 square foot second-story addition to an existing 1,563 square foot one-story single-family residence with an attached 392 square foot two-car garage. The project includes a total of 107 square feet of new covered and uncovered upper deck levels. Other site improvements include a new trash enclosure, new tankless water heater, and solar panels that are proposed under a separate permit. Proposed total of 2,746 square feet of development on a 6,440 square foot lot is 98% of the maximum floor to lot area ratio. Any action may be taken if sufficient information is required. And before I leave that, Katie, is that still true?
Sorry?
Any action we can?
That's correct, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
so it doesn't need modifications or
No, Mr. Chair.
staff hearing officer, okay. All right, so if you could share with us what you're proposing, please.
Well, first of all, I just wanted to point out that Brianna and her husband have long history in Santa Barbara. She was born here and maybe a couple of generations. Her family's owned this residence since, I think, 10 years after it was built. It was just a typical ranch, you know, when they built that tract up there near Samarkand. So they have 3 small children, a baby, and they just growing family, and they just need more space. So with that in mind, we are proposing to go up. Show you the elevations first here. We've got Christine floor plan here. So here is basically the addition is the whole second story you see here. And this is what it looks like currently. So it's very plain, just one story. There's a fairly large unit right to the right of it. And right across the street, there's a 2-story structure. It's kind of, you're going to get the feeling like it's could be kind of left behind as it looks now. It needs to grow, and they need the room for their family. So, with the cost in mind for, doing the addition, and giving it a little bit of style in the Santa Barbara tradition as best we could. Right away, this is what we came up with.
Okay.
It is currently previously landscaped already. Yeah, it has a nice landscape.
Okay. All right, anything else you want to share with us?
Well, there's a second-story deck here that looks out. You can just see the ocean from there. If you look over there.
Can we see that on the plan?
Yeah. The plan came out of light for some reason.
This one.
That's that deck there. There's also just a little deck in the back to bring in light into this whole dressing room, bathroom, closets. And
Yeah, this is quarter, so that's 18 inches deep.
Sorry, it's too light for me to see.
7 by 14.
And master bedroom there, okay. Dressing.
And this
guest
is
office.
open to below, so you got, as soon as you come in the entry, which is below here, you have light, you can look up. There's a window above here and this one, and then the stairs are open all the way up. So you have incoming light.
So this is open here.
Correct.
To the first floor, up to the second floor.
Yeah.
So you see this landing across here.
Yeah, up to that wall there.
Okay.
Yeah, you can see how it ties together here. See, there's the entry. Come up.
So that's sitting, that line is sitting somewhere up there?
Yeah.
Where is this?
Yeah. This dotted line is the
First floor?
first floor.
So we're back roughly 2.5 feet. So that wall is actually back here. So that wall, oops.
And speed bumps over here.
Okay.
All the way
Okay.
over here.
Anything else to present?
No.
Okay.
Well, there is, yeah, on the site plan, there wasn't a trash enclosure. So with the setback that comes around right here, you can just make that line out, that 6-foot setback, and the 20 feet here. There's this little space here, just enough space to do a trash enclosure, and then a new FAU heat pump here, because the current one is sticking out into the setback right here, the heat pump. And the trash cans are also sitting here in the setback area. So we propose to do this trash enclosure here. It would be plastered, as is the existing house. The second story would match that, as well as the trim, wood-clad windows. And
your
color
description
board.
has a tankless water heater?
Yeah,
Is that there?
that's
Oh, okay.
right here.
Right. And solar panels, do you have a roof plan?
I do, but I brought, that was kind of added, I mean,
So where,
I tried to do that initially, and then I ran into an issue that it has to be on a separate permit.
yes, no, we
That's all.
understand. We're just for reference. that's the
So
only-
I just brought it separately, actually.
So they're up there. Okay, it's just for reference, so we understand.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So it's there, and then I have the cut sheets right here.
All right. Okay, anything else?
Here's our north shading, our solar.
Solar access, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Before we go to comments from staff, et cetera, and questions and answers or comments from the board, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Katie, did we receive any written notice?
No, Mr. Chair, I did not receive any written
Okay,
comment.
and this project is noticed out on the site?
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
And the required notices went to the neighbors, correct?
That's correct, Mr.
Okay.
Chair.
Right, thank you. Okay, let's bring it back to the board for questions. Who wants to start?
I don't have any questions.
I've got a few. You guys can chime in as you think about them. With regards to the neighbors, have you had any conversation with your neighbors? Which, can you show me more or less which ones?
We have spoken to the neighbors directly across the street from us.
So these
who-
guys over here,
Yes, and they have a two-story
they have a two-story house.
already existing.
Also, the house up here is two-story.
Okay, and what about the folks right behind you?
We haven't spoken to them directly, but they were noticed.
Okay, so the Tudor house.
And their property elevation is higher than ours
Right.
to begin with.
And what about these folks on each
And we
side?
have spoken to the ones on the corner, to the,
Here's the map of the people that were actually
Okay.
hand-delivered
Okay, but,
notifications.
and so you've spoken to these two,
yes, with the ones on the
both sides of the house?
Yes.
And then the ones directly across the street that have the
Across the
two-story
street,
house?
Yeah, three neighbors actually across the street we've
Okay,
talked to.
but you haven't spoken to these
We
folks
have
yet?
not spoken to them.
All right,
They're actually a little bit up, is a little bit up the hill, so they're lower than that. These people kind of look over the top.
yeah, I
a little bit.
understand, I've been out to know the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay, so, let me ask another question. The fireplace is existing?
Correct.
Okay, and so what you're proposing to do is to extend the chimney, if I go back to your elevations,
A little bit long here.
extend the
It
chimney.
does make it a bit,
Okay, and so that gets you to the code requirement of 10 feet, 2 feet, and all that stuff up there, okay?
and that's called out right here.
All right,
3 feet to the nearest 10.
okay, and then I got the size of the deck. So this, in essence, is just 18 inches.
Correct.
So that's typically what we've kind of informally referred to as a Juliet balcony,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not something you can really kind of walk out on, okay?
That's more
So the
for
doors,
air and light.
those doors are going to open in.
Correct.
Okay. And these doors are going to?
Open out.
Out. Those doors are going to open out, okay.
Correct.
All right. Okay, and then the finished material is, I think you said matches, is going to, intended to match the bottom?
Yes.
And the roof is going to match, you're not going to re-roof this piece?
I don't believe so. It's actually, I don't think it's been that long since that
Okay, so
section
you're
was
probably going to try
rebuilt.
to match that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we've got actually a color for it on the color board.
Okay, other questions? That window is where? That window is which? Let's go back to the floor.
This one?
That's, you can't, it's very difficult to reach. It's one that brings in light into the stairwell, so it's an awning window, so you can.
Let's go back to
the.
It's right there.
Here. So you would have to lean out or from below get it, one of those sticks, kind of pull it like that.
All right.
Rather than trying to
Do
open.
the elevations again.
Back to here. Oops, that's existing. Proposed. Okay. Is that a new window? No.
Yeah, that is actually a new window. This is a vaulted area.
Okay, so
in their
this
dining room.
faces the neighbor to that side.
It does. However, they would have difficulty in seeing it as their garage is right
Okay.
here.
All right, and then that's existing?
That's existing.
Okay, so that's new.
That would
Those
be
are
new.
obviously new.
Yeah.
These are all new, okay. All right. Other questions? Comments?
I have comments.
Yes.
I think there needs to be a little more study of your elevation, in particular how you dealt with the fireplace. This really.
This whole,
Yeah, and I feel that I was looking at this, there's got to be a better way to.
well, it can't happen the way you've drawn it.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It
Okay,
doesn't
so
work.
Obviously, I'm going to get.
Yeah.
That's the first thing that caught my eye. There's no way that
This is really
this
awkward.
whole area right here is really, and it
geometry-
doesn't work.
It's
the way you've done it.
difficult.
The
area.
geometry doesn't work. One of the things you need to be able to do is draw sections through here. And I can tell you, if I drew a section through here and what you've drawn in plan and elevation don't, the geometry doesn't
Well,
work.
this actually does come up in the same
I understand
place.
that, but
However,
you've drawn something that can't be built because the geometry,
Roof line
the roof
doesn't
lines
fit.
don't line up.
the roof line, I have a
Okay.
an issue
So
right
what
there.
I'm going to share with you is that it's just not drawn correctly, okay? It's not drawn correctly, and all three of us picked up on it, okay? So part of your job is to get it drawn correctly.
Right.
But I think the other comment that I hear everybody starting to say, maybe I should not speak ahead of you.
No, go ahead. You're
but
about to say what I
This resolution is very awkward. One of the challenges you have is you have a home across the street. You have a couple of homes each way that have 2 stories.
Right.
Those were built, I suspect, prior to this board being in existence.
Yeah, it
Okay.
must have been.
Right? So part of the challenge is we have some homes that were probably poorly done. Okay? Their proportions, the scale, the heights, et cetera, are really not appropriate. We understand you want to do a second floor. Okay? We know why you want to do a second floor. We can appreciate it. I did a second floor for the same exact reason when my family was where you are. Okay? So we understand that. So we're not sitting here saying you can't do a second floor. What we want to do is try to get this house to look appropriate. Right now, I think what I'm hearing, chime in guys, is that this elevation is really awkward. Okay? It isn't resolved architecturally. So one of the things that we like people to encourage you to do, particularly in this neighborhood, because I suspect when you're going to hear from the people from the Tudor house, once they figure out what's going on, there probably is going to be some pushback. Okay? So one of the things I think will help in terms of what we call size, scale, and bulk, and there are really 3 elements, they have to do with where this thing is sitting in relationship to your existing house. So scale has to do with the human figure. Okay? These standard doors come at 6 foot 8 inches. Okay? What really starts to help you understand what things look like, and this is why I try to do this every time, is once you start putting that to the human scale, what you start to realize is this is kind of proportionally awkward. What really will help this whole house is if you get these plate lines, and that's why when you come in, if you can draw this and say, this is my 9-foot plate height, or floor height.
It is drawn in there.
Well,
that
yeah, but it's
that
hard to see,
line.
okay? And then the plate height gets dropped. So right now, if I read this right, you're at a traditional 8 feet. I think if you drop this down another 6 inches, you get this whole roof to drop down just a bit. Doesn't really compromise your room, but it gets to drop down. The other thing that I think is awkward is the shape of these windows and this whole shape here.
Right.
It really doesn't make any sense. You could allow your fireplace to let it fly separately, and maybe an approach is not try to engage it. I don't know without sitting down and really doing 30 minutes worth of sketching. The shapes of these windows really don't do you justice to having a really nice front of this house.
Yeah.
So I think you need to kind of rethink how that all gets set up. I think on the back, you really want to think about what that's going to be from the second floor and who can see you and who can't see you, okay? Because I can tell you, once you get up here, you're going to figure that out real quick, and you're going to, oh my God, there's a window and that other house can see right into this room. So you want to think about that pretty carefully. This window shape the language of the window fenestrations, the openings, I'm using an architectural term, sorry. But the way the windows sit in the walls really have what we call a language. And you're introducing an element that's strange to the language that's the rest of part of the house.
No one can see that.
I understand that, but the fact is it illuminates light. So whether you can see it or not, you're going to get light at night. Then we get what we call the lantern effect. So we're going to be concerned about that. So what's going to be helpful is when you come back is give us a plan, site plan, that really shows us, and maybe you can use this same little drawing, shows us where all the windows are in these 2 houses. Because one of the things we're concerned about, we can't guarantee anybody's view out of a house.
Yeah.
But what we're concerned about, what we want to see is the privacy issues, not only for you, but for the neighbors. So if you're telling me there's a garage over here, then let us see it.
Let me show you
Okay.
something just real quick here. Is that actually Good.
There it is, okay. That's, we didn't see that sheet of paper. So having us understand where their windows are in relationship to your windows, both on the sides and the back, is really helpful, because sometimes it may be just a matter of moving the window just slightly, and then it all works. Okay? So I think what we may need is a little more information regarding that. So those are my general comments. I see where you want to go, but it's not quite there yet,
Go back to the elevations, please.
at least in my view. Whoops, one page.
I want to expound a little bit on the front elevation.
Couple pages.
Okay.
Okay. To me, as far as size, bulk, and scale, you've put a second story on top of something that doesn't fit. I mean, it looks like you just added a completely different type of architecture up there with the gables, all these gables here, and a flat roofed here, which.
Yeah, it was, I had difficulty with that. I had a deck over here, we had a deck over here originally, and that can't be done.
This,
So-
like Mr. Sweeney has stated, this is too high here.
This
It's too
comes up
massive.
too high, right
Yeah,
here.
too massive here, and plus it's a different type of architecture up there. You're looking at three gables with a flat roof that doesn't work. And again, this doesn't work here, and you don't even need to incorporate that into the addition.
Well, the thing is, let me just
Go ahead.
tell you what I was trying to get here was some light and opening in the entry above.
I think you can still get that, but you need to study it some more.
Yeah.
What
We have to be on the same.
What you really need to,
I'm gonna have to probably push this back.
what you really need to work at is the roof shape in relationship to the roof shape that you're introducing this addition to, okay? I'm going to draw to you, okay? So, study these roof shapes. If you really want light to get into that stairwell, then you're, maybe you have to look at a geometry that allows you to do
Yeah, I see where
this.
you're going.
See where I'm going with that? And then you come down in your roof, and that helps this whole house sit a lot better, because you've introduced a hip when you have gable ends.
Right.
So that's always a challenge when you do that, and so that's I think what we're all kind of feeling uncomfortable about. So I think you need to explore exactly how this all shapes up. It's not the issue of the size of the rooms, because I think your sizes of your rooms are appropriate. There may be a few things you have to tweak here and there to make it all work, but I think what we're getting at is this is a very awkward geometry right now.
Part of this was underpinning to.
Right, and you've got to rely on the existing walls and so forth. I understand all that, but I think there's a solution here we don't see quite yet. Okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, then I think what would be appropriate is if someone could make a motion so that we can give the applicant and the designer some guidance about what we would like to see.
Do you have any comments?
And it may be just a matter of asking for restudies at certain areas.
I have a question of the board. Is everyone okay with the 98% FAR?
That's also of concern, but my sense is.
Because this master bedroom is 24 by 15.
Got a massive master bedroom.
Yeah, part of the problem you have is, in fact, that is a quite technical question to Katie. Because of the size of this lot, and they want to go above 85%, do we have a vote issue?
I don't know if you have a vote issue, but they did provide additional study of FARs if you'd be interested to see
Yeah,
that.
that's important to see. Okay. But my question is the vote issue. Do we have to have a supermajority?
Good.
I think
It's
that's
only
only
if
if
it's
it's
under
100%.
100.
While you're looking that up, let's look at this. Okay? We want to see your table. So, is that you?
Yeah.
Yeah, see, I think that's going to be an issue.
And that's
Yeah, that's going to be an issue.
the one on the corner.
The whole reason they put these FARs in play, the city council provided all of that, is the community basically said, look, you can't keep allowing these huge additions. So we're gonna give you a tool
Right.
to give you a guidance, and we prefer to keep things down at 85%. Right now, you're proposing 98%. So I think you're gonna need to find a way, and I'm speaking for myself, but I'm sensing that the board is gonna have a problem with that. One of the things that helps you understand where you need to be with this thing is just do furniture layout. You know, one of the things, and I'm just doodling on here, you know, that's a king-size bed, 7 feet by 7 feet, okay? There's a nightstand, there's a nightstand, okay? Chest or drawers, whatever. All of a sudden, that room looks to be really big, okay? So it may be, you know, maybe you have to bring the room back like that, okay? You need to study the furniture.
I do see what you're saying, and we
Okay.
actually, believe it or not, have done that.
Okay. But you didn't show it to us.
No.
Okay, so that's always very helpful. If you can show to us to justify why you're asking this amount of square
Right.
footage, okay? A lot of it got chewed up right here. There may be a better way to do this, and I think if you study that, that'll make some of that go away.
Well,
Okay.
we
Okay,
think
so.
we counted once, that area.
So, you know, it's same for the dressing area. That's, you know, that's really generous. So you need to look at that. So sometimes it's a matter of just sucking in some of the dimensions, and you get, that drops down dramatically from 98%.
Well, it might help us with,
That's gonna be a
also
challenge.
With the front, actually. I mean, if we're gonna redesign the up front, so it works better, you know, maybe
That
we
might
can
help you.
pull this back a little bit, and we're gonna have to change this.
All right, so we're going to let you go do that.
So, Mr. Chair, just so I
Yes.
can clarify, you only need a supermajority if a zoning modification for a net floor area is proposed, since they're not at 100% or exceeding 100%. We don't need it right now. Yeah.
Don't need a supermajority. Okay, thank you. All right, so any further comments to the board? No? Okay, so the chair would look for a motion. My sense is we're not ready to give it project design approval, but I'll leave it up to whoever makes the motion.
I'll make a motion. We'd like to have the client come back to the board with the following comments.
Full board.
For the full board, yes. The applicant, we'd like you to come back and restudy the elevation on the south side. In particular, how the fireplace and that whole area in the stairwell is addressed. Restudy the roof shapes on the second floor so it is more consistent with the existing style of the house. Restudy the compatibility of the windows so that they are consistent with the style of the house overall. On the east elevation, study that upper window. I guess you were concerned about a lantern effect, I'm not sure.
Yes, yes.
On the east elevation. Possibly study reducing the second floor plate height to 7 feet 6 inches so that minimizes the impact of the second story addition. On the overall bulk of this existing home, I believe the board finds the landscape plan acceptable.
The existing landscaping, yes.
Yeah, okay. And, and also study reduction of the FAR to
At 98% to what area?
close to 85%.
Okay.
85%.
Okay. All right. So that's your motion?
Yes.
Okay.
You have a comment.
Let me come back to you in a comment, Matt. The process is we have to either get a motion on the floor or we don't have a motion.
That's
on the
my
floor.
motion.
So that's your motion. Is there a second to that?
I second it.
Okay, there is a second to the motion. So before we go to board comment, to the motion on the floor, you have a comment?
I just wanted to point out that there is quite a few structures that are over 85%. And to hold us to that when you can go over, if we came up with a nicer design, would you consider going a little bit?
Okay, as I explained earlier, some of those homes that you see are at much higher FAR were done before this board existed.
understand
Okay,
that.
so our job now, from this point forward, is to get homes more compatible with where they should be, not where some previous owners were able to do it before this board existed. So that's not the issue.
But Fred, I would like to amend my motion to get it as close to 85%.
Okay, and I think that's what your motion was.
I don't want you to.
Right.
I mean, you don't have to get,
Stuck with that
if you
number,
can
but-
come back to us with a design that is 87% or
Perfect. Make an
88%.
effort to reduce the FAR.
And you've made an effort, we'll appreciate that if the design is appropriate, okay?
Okay.
There you go.
So we're basically telling you, try to get to 85%. We have a lot of folks where we've given that same request. They've come back to us and either hit 85, or they came back at 87 and said, that's what we can do, okay? Okay, all right. Do we have other comments to the motion? Other questions, okay?
Thing
Yes.
is, what about the trash enclosure, and is that all?
I think we need to just see it, other than the plan. Was it clearly called out on your elevation somewhere?
It was just.
No,
it's
we
That's
need,
the plan.
yeah, but we need to see it in
You want
elevation.
an elevation,
Yeah,
okay.
it needs to be put on the elevation.
Okay.
So what you do is take your drawing over here,
Yeah, I'll put it on there.
put it on there somewhere, wherever.
It's right there, but.
Okay. And what the finish is and what it's gonna look like, you
Yeah.
have a little gate there or
Wait,
whatever.
Actually,
Okay.
can
No
see
fair,
it.
no fair calling out finishes with numbers.
I've
We
actually
don't,
called
we don't
that
read, we don't read numbers.
cement plaster here to
That, I
match
think he's fine.
color.
He'll get back to us, he's got a,
I do have that.
he's got
I've
work
called
to do.
it out.
Okay, he's got work to do. Okay, that's the motion on the floor. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, so carried. Okay, we will see you back here when you're ready.
Thank you. Okay.
Joe? Okay, let's go to our last item. 1199 Harbors Hills Drive. This is a new project, so I'm going to take the time to read into the record the project description. Welcome.
Those aren't under review.
They aren't under review. We just wanted it for reference. Okay. So this is, if you could introduce yourself, please.
Richard Thorne, the architect, and also the authorized representative for the client.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to read into the record the project description. This is a proposal to construct a 1,184 square feet of additions to an existing 2,591 square foot, one-story, single-family residence with a basement and an attached 406 foot two-car garage. Let's see, whoops, I lost. Of the 1,184 square feet of new additions, 1,100 square feet will be an addition to the main residence, and 83 square feet will be added to the garage. Other site improvements include interior remodel, new covered porch, new concrete walkway, new retaining wall, new stairs, and the removal of one tree. Approximately 287 cubic yards of cut and 13 cubic yards of fill will occur on the site. Proposed project will receive basement credit of 325 square foot portions, 4 foot or less. Proposed total of 3,850 square foot development on a 10,918 square foot lot located in the Hillside Design District is 100% of the maximum floor to lot area ratio. Staff hearing officer review is required for zoning modifications, requests to allow the encroachments within the front and interior setbacks. We can only make comments today because it still requires staff hearing officer review. So if you could share with us what you're proposing to do.
Okay, starting with the site, the basic original house is what's here in gray. And what we basically are doing is making some of the bedrooms were so small. I mean, they're like, one of them not quite 10 by 10 of the existing. So we're taking and developing, in essence, a master suite with, and this is specific to a snoring room for him.
They've been married a long time.
But that's just, yeah, well, they have grown children with kids. But that's just part of, so this is the master suite. And then this area here becomes the dining room kitchen, kind of done in a great room style. And this was the family function and entertainment function with the bar that was there, and then deck that's out front. Now, if you look here in the gray area, you can see the existing deck line of the original house. What I'm proposing is that we basically add our square footage in this portion here and excavating, that's why the cut's there, underneath the house, so that we're doing minimum impact to the edges of the property. So we're really cutting, in essence, we're cutting in right in this area. That's the concept for it. And that's how the additional square footage comes in. I'll show you the next level down. So again, the edge of the house and the deck of the existing deck is here, and we're coming back in under the deck. In this case, we don't have to excavate, and then this is the edge of the footprint. Then we're coming back and excavating back in here and excavating in here, and then back in underneath the existing deck. So our footprint isn't really significantly different what's on the ground now. We're putting deck where the deck is, and the living square footage, this is the part that pops out. And what this is, I'll go to the floor plan just to show you real quickly. He's the ex-UCLA basketball coach, so obviously sports is really important for him. So we're doing a home theater down there for him in retirement. So that's what this bulk of our square footage is the home theater. Then 2 guest suites, which are for the kids when they come with, with the little ones and so forth. So mom and dad upstairs, family downstairs, from an entertainment standpoint. And then this gets used for sporting events type things where he wants to have all of us basketball players and so forth there. So that's the general concept of the house. The thing I was trying to do in the very beginning, and I think have managed to do, is to try to minimum impact on these additional houses. We're not doing anything on this side at all. I mean, we're a good 26 feet to the deck from the property line here, trying to keep it pinched in. This is the toughest side because everything orients this way, and this house is really close. Now, I have another version of the floor plan, which I wanted to, this is what I put together, but this evolved last week with the client, of literally reducing the square footage of the house a little bit. And we were able to do that because he removed some program things in the upper level. So I can share that with you also, but I thought we probably should go through what we actually have submitted at this point. So this is the open space area calculations and all of that kind of thing that we have. Existing garage is in the same location. There's, underneath the house, basically, it's a combination, but mostly supporting type square footages. This area here, which is the deck area, is where the barbecue, basically a barbecue center is there. What I did was, in this case, I came in here with a 6-foot-high screen wall to try to soften any view to that neighbor's lot, because that house sits right over here. So in the thing, which I'll show you in a minute, is we literally pulled this all the way back to here and took this and moved it to here and lopped off this much square footage, because we took out all of this and rolled it back into the other parts of the house. So that's basically the concept. It's a kitchen, dining combo space, a great room. In this case, we're going to go back to more of a formal living room look rather than the great room type look. And these are all existing sitting rooms, existing master suite. We're doing new bathroom and closets and stuff there. There was a small bedroom in the bath that was sitting right in here before. This is all existing square footage. I haven't changed anything. As far as the footprint is concerned upstairs with this proposal, I haven't changed the square footage at all. I've added everything underneath and on the ground level. That's basically what I did.
You
When I
dug-
said ground, we're going downhill, we're digging underneath.
You dug it out all underneath?
Yes, that's the plan, is to go underneath and come out. We're coming out to, kind of like I was showing you on the other page, we're coming out into here, over where the old deck used to sit. We're underneath the deck. So on that point, the excavation is minor, but it gets deeper as we get further deep. Now, there's a cross-section there I can show you, which will help you understand that too. There we go. So the hill just kind of basically comes up here. This is kind of the existing crawl space area. What we're doing is we're going to carve back in. This is the deepest point of the stairwell.
And so just to be clear, this is new deck.
That's a new deck.
And so this has been extended out.
Yes, that's correct. You got it. And then this is new deck, of course, too, down below. This is all in the back. This is all looking out towards the ocean. Yeah. No, you don't see any of that from the street.
And so the front of the house is which photograph?
Let's see. This is part of it, and then it turns, and where am I?
Right there?
Let's look at the key and make sure I get the right number for you. Number 6 should be the one. Yeah, that's
That's basically the front.
Yeah, that's basically the front. And the front basically is just an old sort of ranch style. It's all soft roofed. It doesn't have any identification of front door other than a door in the wall. No covered porch or anything of that, so I'm proposing a covered porch.
7 and 4 and 3. 7, 4 and 3. Okay. 7.
This is the edge where you're looking at the what is basically the plate glass window and the window that's in the front of the house in what is existing sort of living area, family area, I guess they should.
So again, what is the zoning modification request?
That is because we had an overlay of setbacks. So all of a sudden, anything we're doing inside of our setback line, we have to
I understand
get a
that. I
modification.
understand it, but where is that on the plan?
Oh, the areas that occurred?
Yes.
Okay, let's go back to. What we're looking at is here, and then because of the way the original building line was and
So
the new
where is the
setback, it's
setback
here.
line? Where is it?
We'll do the site plan, that'll be easier to see it.
Okay, so it's,
The green is the new setbacks. These are the existing
right, I
dimensions.
understand. So these are this is the setback.
Correct.
So it's all these pieces of the house that sit outside that line.
Yes.
And that's what you're trying to get a modification.
Modification for, correct.
And you're adding this these.
And adding the balcony, and then we're adding, in theory, we're adding that square footage, which we didn't have originally, which was the barbecue area.
Okay, so you're adding here. How big is this deck, square footage wise?
Don't recall offhand, I'd have to
Do we
look
have
at it.
that on the?
Don't know that I have it
Deck,
listed
open
there.
space?
Yeah, there it is, 12, yeah, 1,000.
So 1,000 square feet.
One of your floor plans shows seems like I saw something that, show the floor plans of how far the stairway goes back. You've put.
The stairway, you're actually coming in looking at the railing, and we're going down here and doing this.
So
that
that's all existing?
Yeah, that's it,
So-
we're cutting in the stair.
Okay, show me a plan of the stairway on the basement level.
Okay, one more sheet, to show you that. We're coming up and going up that way, hitting the landing, and then stepping into that space above.
So all you're digging out is,
Yeah, it's kind of, this line right here is about the deck line of what's above, so we start cutting at this point, and we're cutting back all the way into here, and we're cutting back into here.
So this is a new deck, and then there's a deck on top of that, is that what I'm?
Yeah, on top of this space. Mhm.
Okay, so there's a new deck here.
Right, it's a
That's
terrace
what-
deck, basically.
Terrace deck, so what's the drop off from here down to the ground?
That is about 3.5 feet, if I remember
Okay,
correctly.
and
You can
so-
see that in the section.
So let's go back to your section.
We're trying to minimize those steps so that we don't have a lot of high vertical wall. There we go.
Okay, so you're dropping here.
Mhm.
There's actually open space under here?
There'll be the cantilever, yeah, there'll be a
So this
small
is-
area.
this is cantilever,
That's
okay.
cantilever, yes. Uh-huh.
Okay, and then this, the plane of that and the plane of this are in the same plane?
No,
The
this
face
is
of
out in front. This
So
is
that's
there,
that guy,
this one's
that's that
here.
back of this. So
Mhm.
this is new, that's new.
That's correct.
Okay,
Yes.
all right. And then you're proposing a new roof and new siding and new windows?
Yes.
So all the windows get changed?
Yes.
All the siding gets changed?
Correct.
All the roof gets changed?
Siding is now,
It's kind of a partial plaster board siding, and what I'm proposing is to use the
Horizontal.
cement type horizontal lap siding look, and then doing the weathered gray, a light weathered gray look with the white type trim.
Okay, and then the roof material is?
Roof material would be asphalt shingles, but Class A because of,
Okay.
on the hillside. Mhm. So we'll have the, the right materials on the building to meet the fire standard that's required there.
asphalt shingle, okay.
Yeah.
And then this house has no fireplace?
It has a fireplace. It's an existing fireplace now, but with this, I can show you the revision on the floor plan. I'm proposing to put a new one in. If we do the new one that's here, what I'll do is we'll put in a real one that allows us to use the standard flue instead of just the sidewall type, which is what this is.
Okay.
And the barbecue center will back up against that.
So do we have a chimney?
There is no chimney.
So it goes away because you're just using a gas?
That's the way, yeah, that's the way they did when they put it in,
Gas
when they
system.
did their remodel before this owner bought it. Yeah.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's about it, but I could show you real quick what I'm proposing and what the FAR change would be from the 100, goes down to about 96. And that's happening because of that floor plan change I discussed just briefly.
So this is what you submitted?
This is what was submitted formally, and this just came up, we talked about
This
maybe.
week. So
Yeah.
you're
This is-
changing, okay,
Yeah,
all
I'm
right.
proposing this change, and, we can do a continuance if that's the best way, or however you want to do it. But I think this is the way it should go personally. I think it's better for the house, it's better for the neighbors as well. So this room was the one you saw that was all the way out to here. What I'm proposing is we take that back 12 feet. This gives a good-sized living room and gets rid of all that square footage totally. So that helps me with the FAR. Then moving the barbecue center from here, let's go to the site plan. This is the original location. That's the house next door. So I'm talking about it being over here now, and there are some bedroom windows right here. So I'm trying to get away from that as best I can and pull the deck back as far as I can to get away from it. So that's what is being
So you've
proposed.
taken the building part out, but you've left it as a deck?
It's just a roof deck because the garage is staying underneath.
Okay, but it's a
Yeah,
deck?
It's all deck.
Okay, that's all it is?
That's correct.
Okay, so the deck size actually got bigger in
The
terms of
deck
square?
did get bigger in square footage, yes.
And this is looking down onto the lower neighbor down there.
But this actually this looks down the street. Because of the way the lot sits, it's really unusual.
If you look at the photograph, this whole
Yeah.
thing's facing that street.
Yeah, and when you look here, this house is way back here. This is the corner we're discussing, and this is open to the street and looks all the way down to Harbor. So it's a strong view, and I think it's,
And that basically stays the same?
that's the same. Lower level didn't change.
All right.
And what this does here, I just real quickly did this as an overlay. This shows what the building would look like if it steps back. And we go with just the low deck, and that corner of the building would disappear.
All right, anything else?
Nope.
That's it? Okay.
I think that's it.
Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Katie, did we get any comments?
No, Mr. Chair, we did not.
All right, let's bring it back to the board for questions.
I have no questions. What material do you plan to use for the railing around the deck?
The railing right now is planned for it to be glass, and what I'm in the process of trying to do is I'm working with some glass companies to look at the cost effectiveness of using the glass that's used in the high-rise that cuts down the glare, so we don't get a lot of glare off of it, because it's obviously, it's one of those houses on the south side which, occasionally will pick up sun. It's got west, south, and east. So that's what the client would prefer also is the glass, primarily because what it gives him is the ability to be out here in a lounge chair and break wind. You don't have the wind hitting you like you do with an open rail.
Understand. Okay. Questions, further questions? Comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I feel that I actually do prefer this reduction here. I think that's a good idea. I think because I know the decks are very large. However, the way the house is configured, the way the house is configured, the deck in the rear doesn't cause us any serious privacy issues. So I can support the large deck. I think because of the style of the architecture, which I would call contemporary 70s, I guess.
Trying to blend both what exists
Yeah.
and new. Yeah.
That the glass railing being in the back like that doesn't pose a reflection issue, though cable railing would work. However, with cables, you don't get the windbreak.
That's, initially, I proposed the
Yeah.
cable railings, and
So
the
my
problem we're
feeling
looking for
is
windbreak.
that the size, bulk, and scale is appropriate. I think you've done it's sensitive to the size, bulk, and scale of the existing house, and so I can support the project.
Okay, other comments?
I'm okay with the size, bulk, and scale, especially the current reduction with the adding the deck and reducing the structure. But I am uneasy about the glass railing factor setting a precedent, even if we can't see
Sure.
it. So I'll be curious how my colleagues feel.
I think this board is, in the past and present, we've pushed to keep the FARs down at 85%, and you've pushed it up to 100%.
Yeah, well, with this change, which I propose, we're at 96.
You're at 96. Well, it's still high. It's still.
Yeah, well, it
still-
is, but if you didn't put that square footage in downstairs, then the house is not viable.
Okay, and
Yeah, that's really, I mean, it's kind of a cop between a hard space and a rock because of the.
what I'd like
you gotta
to,
get back
what I'd like to, you have two proposals here. Basically, we need to look at one. We can't look at two.
I would suggest,
No, that's your suggestion.
No,
You
I
need
was
to
just saying.
present to us.
Yeah, you're going to have to present one.
this is
Present
what
one,
I would
okay.
be happy
But
to
you're gonna
do,
have to
come
come
back
back
and redo this one because I've got the supporting documents in here for the
Okay.
kind of stuff that Creeks needs to look at
Right,
and some of
I
those things. And they'll all have to be revised, and I couldn't get it done in
understand.
time. Yeah.
What you're proposing underneath I don't have a problem with what you're proposing underneath the house. It's not that much bigger than what's above the house. I drove up to this afternoon. The house is basically right on the corner. And your setbacks, the existing house is in the new setbacks. Then you're proposing a deck out in front right here. I don't like this wraparound deck here. The deck's big, but I just don't see this deck wrapping around here and taking more of the setback than you're not allowed to have in the first place.
You're talking about the
And-
one on the front.
Yeah.
The one on the front is for one purpose, and that is to articulate the front elevation. If you look at the photograph, it's down vertical
I
two-story
understand.
wall. Yeah.
And also, if you're going to, when you come back, I'll use your word, articulate, the elevations of the front. Make the roof like, I mean, everything is horizontal. All your lines on your elevation, on your last, I guess is the last sheet, right there. Everything is horizontal. It's not horizontal in what you're describing. These are asphalt shingles. Basically, asphalt shingles don't look horizontal. I mean, they've got,
Well, I can render
Yeah,
the
that's what I'm
style
asking.
differently. And in fact, if I came back with a blocked out set of drawings, it would be different anyway. It'd be shown with
Okay.
real shingles.
That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, rather than this is a freehand concept. for
I
the
have
purpose of
I have a
concept.
question. Do you have an elevation of that side?
It's only obliquely shown right now. If you look at it from the rear elevation, you could see it because it's just, it's basically, this is the oblique side on the other one, and this is the one you're talking about. It's the glass,
But
it's
we don't
this.
have a-
So I don't have a straight on right now because it showed the character that was existing. And we're basically preserving that. Now it'll be different because there'll be a deck there if I cut it back.
All right.
That's all comments I have.
I'm not going to support this at all, okay? Deck is way too big. The decks are way too big. This is a party deck city. I'm not going there. I'm not going to support any glass railings whatsoever. I won't support that. I'm certainly in agreement with Joe. A deck out here is not acceptable. You have to get a modification to allow just this piece to remain in place. So I can't support that. I'm not going to support these huge decks I realize that, and I don't, as Joe does, I don't have a problem with what you're trying to stuff underneath, but the decks are way too big. I've been in this house, okay, and a couple of social events, and I understand what's going on here, and that isn't going to fly. Our guidelines tell us that you can't have our guidelines encourage us, and in fact, in some cases dictate, you can't have a deck within 15 feet of the property line, okay? So you need to go back and look at the city's guidelines.
And-
So,
well,
excuse me, let me finish, okay?
I just want to ask one
Okay,
question.
let me
for you.
finish. So I'm not going to support what you're proposing in any fashion at this point, because it's just it's just not acceptable. So I can't support any of it. Okay? Any other comments? Okay, the applicant has to go to the staff hearing officer, and as we've dealt with before, we can either indicate that the project's acceptable and can move to the staff hearing officer, but you have to be very specific about what you're telling the staff hearing officer we're in agreement about in terms of the elements that are inside the setback, because that's the modification. So you'd have to be very specific so the staff hearing officer understands why you're accepting it. Or you could make a motion that requires the applicant to return with comments for things you want further study on or you want changes for consideration. And certainly if the applicant is proposing something different than what was initially put on this agenda, then we need to be fairly clear and definitive about what you're asking the applicant to return with. I think those are kind of the two, there may be some other ways, but those may be the two major approaches to making a motion. And I think to benefit to the applicant and the designer, you certainly don't want to send them to the staff hearing officer unless you have positive comments about the request for the modifications.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
The one sheet of drawings that is in here, if you want to look at those, it does show the fenestrations that exist and the ones that are proposed to change. All that information is a part of these drawings.
So that's,
Show us.
which sheet is that on?
It even has calculation as to what the area. Get rid of these real quick. Comes in, it talks about what was changed, it gives existing windows, proposed
Right,
windows.
but we don't have, yeah, okay.
You don't have which? I'm
You don't have elevations, you just have it on a plan, but that's okay.
I have elevation that shows these windows, that's what my elevations are.
I understand, but we don't have the other.
The existing house elevations, other than photographs, that's correct.
That's.
So you need a set of drawings for all of the elevations of the existing house?
Typically, what we ask for, if you look at the little sheet that gives you guidelines, you need to come in with the existing house as is, and then the new house, front elevations on all sides, including whatever sections you need to do to describe what you're doing.
Okay.
That's
I can do that.
That's
And I-
kind of what helps
yeah.
us understand what you're proposing without, given the geometry of how this house is laid out, it's much more helpful if you have all that information for us, because it's difficult to kind of understand everything you're trying to do.
That was originally a part of the package that I submitted to planning, and they asked me to remove it. So I will be happy to reinsert it, because they were a full set of exterior drawings.
That
yeah.
may be for planning, but for this
No,
board.
I understand,
you
but
gotta
I'm
have
saying,
different
I can
stuff.
supply those, that's not a problem.
Okay, well, it's up to you.
Does the existing house have the two gables, the entrance over here and the entrance over the windows here?
This
Two
is
gables?
existing. If you look at the photograph, the rest of this roof is just flat plane.
Flat roofed.
This is the new section I'm proposing, and that's where one of the modifications come from, is to allow for this right here.
I won't apologize, I was just saying it's hard for me to grasp what you're doing here because I'm looking at so many lines on so many drawings instead of just a floor plan, a site plan, and
Okay, well, this is the simplest sheet probably to get the best grasp on the floor plan and the section and the site constraints. because it's all shown here. That's why I did it this way. So it's this sheet and the
Like
next
we
sheet.
stated before, we probably need an elevation drawn
Of the
to,
existing.
of the existing, so we can compare it to what you're changing.
I can
That's what-
provide that, because that we have.
Okay, so the chair would entertain a motion. Anyone ready to do that yet?
That's too difficult for me. Too
No?
difficult.
Okay, I'm going to offer a motion. Then you guys can decide whether you want to accept it. The board would request that the applicant return with, first, the following specific information. Elevations of the existing home and all the and all the sides of the geometry. And preferably, the proposed change in any elevation shown immediately above or below that elevation, so we can compare the two together.
Meaning same page.
Okay. The board would request that the applicant come back with specific square footage numbers for each of the proposed decks, that the applicant restudy reducing the decks in overall size, that the applicant return with a deck railing system that does not include glass railing. If there is concern about wind, we would look to the applicant to provide other possible solutions. That the applicant return with a total square footage that reduces the FAR closer to 85%. That the applicant not introduce side decks to the property to the east, property lines east and west. That if there are changes made to those elevations for any reason, that the applicant demonstrate to us the location of windows that are located in the home at 1187 Harbor Hills Drive and/or 1211 Harbor Hill Drive, so that we understand the relationship for privacy issues. And that the board exercises its request to maintain the Single-Family Design Board guidelines that all decks be located no closer than 15 feet to any property line. That the applicant return with a suggested set of color boards and materials so that we clearly understand what's being proposed for both architectural siding and for roofing materials and deck materials.
You might include the fact that we do agree with existing house.
The board wants to indicate that we could support the modifications for the applicant's purposes, but only after we're able to determine what the other elements really look like. Part of the challenge we have here, and we've had this all over this neighborhood, is that when the city downsized, they overlaid these new zoning lines without any consideration for how all these homes were built. So every one of these have got to have modifications, which makes it much more complicated in our view than it's necessary, but that's what we're dealing with. So the easier you can make it for us to understand what you're trying to do, the better. So that's not part of the motion. That other language was part of the motion.
Can I add something to it?
Well, you can accept that and add to it if you
Okay,
want.
I accept that. I'd like to add to that.
Well, someone has to second it, and then you open.
Well, he's still making the motion.
Would the person who recommends the language for the motion accept the fact that this
element
is now added to the existing house, which I don't think is appropriate?
Okay, so that would be
The
added.
front entry.
Okay, so that would be added to the motion. That finish the motion?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second to the motion? If we get no second, the motion will die. Is there a second to
I'm
the
not
motion?
seconding it.
Okay.
About the front entry.
I can't accept that comment.
He added the front entry to the motion.
I think you need better detailing of it, but just to say
And
it's
then-
not acceptable.
Okay, I reword that. I think the front entry needs a better study rather
So
than
you're gonna
just
say
adding.
More study, just more study.
More
not
study,
better study.
more study.
So that's the motion.
Okay, yes,
Did we
more
catch
study.
that? Okay. So now with that, is there a second to that motion? Okay, so there is a second to the motion. Is there further discussion to the motion? Okay, all right. Okay, you can probably work with staff later on, because I know we put a lot of stuff in that motion to get it all figured out. Okay, that's the motion on the floor. There's no further discussion to the motion. The chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, we'll see you back
Okay,
with
could I
further
ask one
study.
question about the
Yes.
deck issue?
Yes.
You've got an option. It's either walking on the roof, in essence, and I don't want to put slope roofs on the lower level because it blocks views and other things, or is it, the part you're saying, put a handrail in it so they can't walk out there, that's acceptable?
We want some, in my view, we want something you can't walk out there, okay? It's just too much deck. Part of the challenge we have in Santa Barbara is everybody wants to have huge party decks. And then we get a whole bunch of folks coming in here and complaining. And then on top of that, you know, the whole purpose, the reason this board exists is because people wanted to come in and have extensive outside areas, big additions to houses, McMansion, et cetera. That's why we were put into place as a board.
I understand that.
So that's kind of what's going on.
Yeah, I'm just trying to figure, I was trying to, because
Yeah.
when you deal with
I
stepping
understand.
down a hillside,
Yeah, there's
your
probably
ordinance
other,
says you prefer to step down the hillside.
okay, there's probably other ways to deal with the roof element.
Yeah, but I say, but when you look at those illustrations, they don't put roofs on those because it's not the desired illustration. So where I'm asking, kind of a catch-22, when I can make it a flat roof.
I think you'll figure it out once you kind of get into it. Okay. Is that the last item?
Do you guys want a copy of this at all? Would that be
No,
helpful?
you'll need to formally submit.
Yeah,
it.
I'll redo it, yeah.
All right.
You can keep these too if you'd like, otherwise I'll accept them.
Okay, is there any further business before today's meeting? Okay, Katie, do we need, or is that something you do to officially announce that we will not have a meeting on the 5th with lack of a quorum?
I'll do that at a later time.
With that, the board is adjourned.